The story begins with Erida, an ordinary middle-aged man who spends his life working self-destructively at a Japanese company known as Hell. God informs him that he has died from overwork, even though he still had several years of life left. However, due to a divine error, he has been sent to the afterlife prematurely. As compensation, God offers him any wish. Erida thinks for a moment and expresses a desire to live on an island without a single person, as well as to have a strong body that never aches or ache. God grants his wish and even grants him the ability to copy any magic after seeing it just once. Then he's sent to a new world to start a new life. Erida opens his eyes in the body of a young man 20 years old on the island and begins to reflect on everything that happened. However, he soon stops worrying and decides to live a more peaceful life, after which he heads into the forest behind him. But he has no experience in survival. He tells himself that this is not the time to doubt and to do everything in his power to live a peaceful life. Erida runs through the forest. As he walks through the forest, he realizes that his body is much lighter and moves much more freely than ever before in his past life. Wants to find food and water. Suddenly, a rabbit jumps out of the bushes and appears in front of Erida, looking at him with its cute eyes. Erida feels awkward about having to hunt him for dinner, but before he can do anything, the rabbit seems cute to him. He apologizes to the rabbit. The animal attacks him like an enraged bull, trying to cause at least some harm. Seeing that the attack had done no harm to Erida, the rabbit is trying to escape, but Erida grabs him in the air and throws him like a cannonball straight into a tree, revealing himself to be a true goblin. Erida continues to wonder why the rabbit attacked him and hit his head, but soon comes to the conclusion that this must be the norm in this world. He then bends down to catch the unconscious rabbit, but suddenly a huge wolf appears behind him, ready to steal his prey. Erida decides to throw the rabbit as bait and runs away, as fast as he can, without even realizing it, until he finds himself near a tree to catch his breath, and thinks about how he almost died again. He wonders what means living alone. After this, Erida looks at the forest, sees that it's already getting dark, and decides to find food and water. The next day, he returns to the rocky shore and completes. He goes about his day, enjoying his new body and stamina. At the same time, he wonders if he can really survive alone on this island. But looking at the night sky and the stunning view, his resolve strengthens, and he thinks that if he sees this view every night, he'll be fine. The next day, he notices that his body does not hurt, although he slept on the rocks, and decides to explore the beach in search of food, before returning to the dangerous forest. While walking along the coast, he notices something that catches his attention and freezes in place. Looking closer, he realizes that on the beach, there's a girl lying unconscious. He runs towards her, wondering where she came from. Knowing there is no time to waste, he checks to see if she is breathing and realizes that her breathing is getting weaker and weaker. With no other options, he decides to perform cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Like in the movies, clenching his fists, he prepares to try, apologizing to her and promising that she can yell at him later. He breathes into her mouth and starts doing compressions on her chest. After a few tries, she spits out the water and he begins to breathe again, sinking back onto the sand with relief before realizing his skin color has returned to normal. He admires her beautiful face and smile, but then he realizes that there shouldn't be any strangers on this island. Despite this, he can't just leave her there, so he carefully begins to undress her, trying not to, staring at her too closely, but of course he blushes when he notices that her underwear matches the color of her hair, and immediately turns away, scolding himself for looking. As soon as he manages to change the girl into dry clothes, he hangs up the wet ones. Clothes on a line. Looking at the hanging clothes, he thinks that this is how he feels now. It's like I'm in a fantasy world because these clothes look like they were taken straight from a role-playing game. At that moment, the girl wakes up and asks who he is. Erida comes up to her and introduces himself, saying that he found her on the beach and rescued her. She feels weakness and tries to sit up, but Erida worriedly asks if she should move at all. The girl notices the new clothes and Erida becomes nervous, quickly explaining that her clothes was wet, so he had to change her clothes. He blushes and Erida scratches the back of his head, saying that maybe she shouldn't have done that. The girl smiles and thanks Erida for salvation, which surprises him, but he smiles back, relieved to know that everything is okay with her. Okay. She introduces herself as Rihanna Arrowy, showing curiosity. Erida asks her why she was unconscious on the beach. Rihanna explains that by the king's orders she was to go to the farthest island, but a big storm hit the ship, sinking it, him and nearly taking her life. She then asks if Erida lives on the island, but Erida thinks that he cannot tell the truth, and laughingly replies that she also ended up here. Rihanna accepts his answer because the main thing is that he saved her. Erida thanks her, but she replies that it is she who should thank him. She suggests they rest a little before, how to look for food and water, and after a while they go deeper into the forest. Erida notes that she's tired and suggests stopping to rest. Exhausted, Rihanna notices that Erida doesn't look tired and admires his incredible stamina. Erida says that he was surprised too, causing her to ask how he could be surprised by his own stamina. After this, Rihanna notices that this island is strange and based on where the ship sank and how did she end up here, it shouldn't be that far from the kingdom, and wonders why the king doesn't know about this. Suddenly, Erida sees a flock approaching wolves and realizes that they are the same ones as the day before. He sees that they are preparing for attack and quickly warns Rihanna to run, but she smiles and, standing firm on legs, calls himself the most powerful magician, raises his hand and calls upon the blades of wind, which they cut the wolves as if they had never been there, and he, seeing this, is amazed and asks if there was. It's magic. Rihanna smiles and says that it's absolutely true. At that moment, Erida notices a wolf that somehow managed to survive. He approaches Rihanna, and at the moment the wolf jumps to attack her, Erida pushes her aside and blocks the attack with his hand, but the guy doesn't even feel pain, as if nothing happened, and even the wolf himself is surprised by this reaction. Rihanna turns around in horror to check on him, but he casually says that perhaps the wolf was weakened by her spell. After that, he hits Wolf and sends him flying towards a tree, as the projectile caused surprise, and Erida's mind returned to the previous day when the same thing happened to the rabbit. Watching this, Kiana asks him who he really is with a worried expression. At that moment, something makes Rihanna terrified and she screams at Erida to run as fast as he can when she gives the signal. Hearing this, Erida turns around and turns pale, seeing a huge, an alpha wolf, tearing through the trees with such force that the ground trembled beneath its paws. The wolf grinned at him, preparing to attack, and even Erida sensed the bloodthirsty aura coming from him, realizing that he had no chance of winning even if they fought together. Rihanna prepares a powerful spell and releases a giant sword of wind at Alpha Wolf, but to her horror, it has no effect. Seems like she's about to will become an exquisite treat for the beast, while the giant creature jumps towards her with her jaws open. But at the last moment, Erida intervenes and pushes her aside. He checks to see if she's okay, but Oriana starts yelling at him, asking, why didn't he run away? She tells him to leave her, that she will delay the wolf and buy time for his escape. Hearing this, Erida looks at her and says that he will not allow someone like she will die here, and then turns to the wolf, declaring that he will become his opponent. Deep down he knows he has no chance of defeating the beast, but he decides that if he given this second chance in life, he will not live with regret for allowing someone die under his protection even if he loses, because at least he can win a little time for Rihanna to escape. Rihanna begs him to stop, but Erida swings his fist and strikes directly at the wolf, and the force of the strike sends the wolf flying faster than NASA's mission to space. Erida watches as the giant wolf flies away like Team Rocket, and then looks on his fist, realizing how powerful he really is. and he thinks that God has accepted. The part about strength is too serious when he asked for a strong body that doesn't get sick and gets injured. After that, he turns to Ariana to come up with an excuse for this absurd feat, but finds her still in a state of shock, looking up at the sky as if statue. With this, Erita lets out a deep sigh and addresses the god in his head, saying that everything must have a limit. The gods eventually killed Erita and reincarnated him as a new world with a body free from disease and injury, and the ability to copy any skill. To come with these forces, he begins a quiet life on a desert island, but feels that the abilities God gave him were a bit like cheating. Meanwhile, Ryan, still in shock because she has never seen a human defeat a monster so easily, and asks if this type of strength is normal for Erita, with his cheese and his wet rice cracker. He doesn't know how to respond and calls it hesitation. That makes Ariana smile and say that even with her body strengthening technique, she could never do something like that, and she assumes that Erita assumes that his magic is stronger than that of the 7-star mage. Erita is surprised by her words and quickly denies it, that he knows something about magic because he knows that the truth about his reincarnation and powers from gods will probably make her think he's gone crazy. Rihanna notices his thoughtful facial expression and apologizes for putting pressure on him, thanking him for saving him from giant wolf. Hearing this, Erita thinks, if the documents are mixed up, it would be just as curious, but she doesn't want him to feel bad, so claims he's not angry with her. Rihan puffs out her cheeks and asks if she's okay with it. Him like a child. Yurata quickly explains that she didn't mean it that way and asks whether he is a 7-star mage, because it is really so amazing. Hearing this, she looks at him intently, making Erita realize that he said something stupid again. However, Rihanna is surprised that he doesn't know anything about the 7 mages and wonders how it is possible to be so cut off from the world. To this, Erita replies that he doesn't remember anything, but Rihanna thinks it's just an excuse. She then explains that the title of 7-star mage, awarded to the strongest magicians in the country who are powerful enough to fight dragons and which are admired throughout the continent, and she is the youngest who ever received this title in history. Erita timidly expresses admiration, thinking to himself that even with all the magic of his body, he couldn't do anything about what he had done. Then she shows curiosity towards him, but Erita thinks that if he sets foot on the continent, they'll probably catch them. Then Liana remembers that they need to find a source of water, which Erita agrees and asks to follow him as he hears the sound of water ahead. They go deeper into the forest and find a wide stream, which impresses Ariana, because it hits right on goal. Knees are bent near the stream to check if the water is safe to drink, and, after making sure that everything is okay, he offers her a drink. But, turning around, he discovers that she is already chopping vegetables and preparing soup on the floating table she summoned. Erita turns to her and Rihanna face and asks what she wants. Our poor boy notices her, a concentrated look, like someone accustomed to handling a knife. He asks where she got all the kitchen utensils, and she casually replies that she used storage magic. Erita, puzzled by the answer until she explains that with storage magic you can store something anywhere, anytime, and its storage capacity is much greater than others. Magicians. Since she is a high-level magician, he is impressed and looks at her with smile as she tells him to sit back and relax while she cooks. He feels her magic and thinks about how incredibly powerful magic is and how much he would like to possess it. The same. At that moment, he notices that a strange wave appears in front of him and puts it on her hand. His eyes widen as he realizes his hand has disappeared into the wave and wonders if she's using storage magic. He's confused whether it's power given to him by God, or is it the ability to deceive that allows him to copy any abilities he sees in others. Rihanna turns around and tells him to stop play and asks what he's doing. But Erita quickly pulls his hand away and shrugs, as if nothing had happened. The portal disappears, and Diana doesn't seem to have noticed anything. What? Good luck, because he doesn't want to get into trouble. Then Rihanna asks him to hold frying pan while she sets the table and goes over to a pile of broken stones and creates a hole. A table out of nothing with her magic. Erida can't help but be impressed again as she finishes cooking everything in a few minutes and sets everything out on the table. Erida praises him again. Her and explains that she is a first-class adventurer. Obviously, she is used to meals in places like this. Then she serves a steaming bowl of tomato soup, which makes Arida's stomach starts to rumble and he thinks he might have lost his aura points, so he immediately apologizes. But Oriana only smiles, calling him little. A child. She gestures for him to sit down and Erida is about to take the chair, but then his brain starts to block out everything old when he sees a girl sitting there with cute ears and Ninetails who is smiling. Erida looks at her in confusion when realizes it's the beast girl. The girl bends down to sniff the soup and then turns to Ariana, calling her big sister. She then begins to eat, watching in silence, not knowing what to do in this situation. He looks at Ariana and notices that she trembling. Then he is about to ask her if everything is okay, but she insists that everything is fine, pretending that nothing is happening. He notices that her eyes continue move towards the girl and he wonders if she's okay. Meanwhile, the frying pan is already empty, and Erida understands that if he doesn't stop her now, she will eat everything. He looks at the girl disapprovingly and scolds her for stealing other people's food. But Rihanna immediately tells him to take his time and let her eat as much as she wants. Erida disagrees and says that although she looks like a child, she should be as good to teach. Rian shares and tells him to let her go, which makes Erida. Recognizing Ryan's panic, he gently places the girl on the ground, asking her name. The girl says her name is Luna, and Erida gets down to her level and calmly explains that they were about to eat, and she took his portion. Luna's ears droop, and she quietly apologizes, while Erida strokes her head and says that everything is okay, and she returns it to him. That melts his heart. Then he turns to Ariana and asks her if it's enough, whether she has food, and explains that he has prepared enough supplies to last 6 months. Thinking that it would take this time to reach the remote island, he apologizes and asks if she can cook something for Luna, which surprises her. Ariana. But when she sees Luna's beaming smile, she agrees. Luna doesn't believe it first and asks again if everything is really okay. And Rihanna nods, and Luna happily, thanks. Rihanna smiles and says she'll start cooking and asks Luna to wait. A little while he goes to the kitchen. Erida comes back and thinks he can't continue. Depend on Rihanna in this way, otherwise he will eventually become just secondary character. Luna interrupts his thoughts and asks his name, and he smiles and introduces himself. Then he remembers that he asked God for an island with everything he needed. Life alone, and decides to do everything on his own to ease Ryan's burden. Erida thinks about this and realizes that there shouldn't be people on the island, and he wonders, are there other animals like Luna that live there? He then asks Luna, does she live on this island? Luna nods and says that she belongs to the tribe Divine Beasts, and that there are many other tribes such as the Demon Tribe, the Ancient Tribe, dragons, and a tribe of vampires. He even smiled when in fact you don't have any human ones there. Tribes. Meanwhile, Rihanna finishes cooking and brings the soup to the table, and they sit down and eat together. When they finish eating, Rihanna uses magic to easily establish tent and declares that this will now be her base. When Luna enters the store and closing it behind him, Liana suggests that they take their time and talk about what happened today. As soon as they sit down inside the store, Rihanna again tells Erida that she is one of the 7 magical stars and explains that she was going to go to a distant island to find an elixir that can make a person immortal. She mentions that she traveled there with several knights, but judging by the established situation, one can understand that they did not survive. She also adds that if the moon speaks, if it's true, then it's quite possible that this is that very distant island. Hearing this, Erida thinks about the fact that all the tribes mentioned by Luna seem quite real and asks Rihanna if Luna is just an ordinary girl. However, Rihanna firmly answers that he doesn't understand anything because he doesn't know anything about magic. But she feels that Luna has much more magical power than she does, which is why she was so scared earlier. Rihanna calls Luna a monster that will cause the destruction of the world if she appears on continent. After hearing this, Erida says that she doesn't seem like that, and Rihanna agrees, saying that she just wants to warn Erida about how strong she is. Then Erida asks about other tribes, and Yana explains that beasts and divine demons were part of ancient mythology, and these creatures belong to the level of folklore of the era preceding the existence of people. She mentions dragons from ancient stories that destroyed entire cities and vampires which are considered fictional monsters that no one believes in. Despite this, they met a godfather like Muna, which proves that the island is anything but ordinary, and they don't know what kind of monsters they might encounter next. Warns Erita that until they have fully explored the island, it is best not to engage in contact with these monsters because no matter how strong they are, they remain people, so they should be careful. Then Erita asks about the elixir, and Rihanna replies that they don't even know if he is really on this island, and that the expedition team was missing. To properly deal with the situation, they would need royal knights. But Erida had already decided that he would stay on the island and didn't want strangers appeared. Then he tells Ariana that if they want to leave, they will have to turn around to find the boat. Hearing this, Rihanna replies that Erita will have to work for it. Erita smiles and thinks how optimistic she is, but soon understands that in order to live peacefully on this island, he will have to cooperate with Rihanna, and since his body is not easily damaged, he will not die so easily. In addition, thanks to his ability to copy skills, he can ask Ariana to teach him some things. He plans to live here for the rest of his life, but Oriana has a different opinion, so he decides cooperate with her as much as possible. The next morning, Erida wakes up, thinking that I had always only imagined that I would end up sharing a tent with girl. Rihanna is already awake and greets him good morning. There are dark circles under her eyes. Circles, but he pretends not to notice anything and decides to wash himself in the river. He comes out, tense, takes a deep breath and hopes that today everything will go smoothly. After everything that happened yesterday, at this time the moon comes to him and joyfully greets him, but what scares Erita is the best person standing next to the moon, and which he clearly exudes a gangster atmosphere. When Erita asks him who he is, the man answers with a question, not whether Erita is an uninvited guest on the island. Hearing this, poor Erita closes his eyes and begins to doubt whether this day will be peaceful. The beast-like man continues. Look at him, and Erita, just by looking, understands that he is incredibly strong. The man finally makes a speech and introduces himself as Luga, from the tribe of divine beasts, and then asks Erita's name. After Erita introduces himself, Luga looks at the tent and asks about the girl who concentrates her magical power inside. He turns around to Ariana and says that if she intends to fight, then he will gladly fight with her. But if she doesn't want this, then she has to stop because she doesn't have a single chance against him. Hearing this, Rihanna leaves the tent, and Erida is shocked to see the look on his face. Such a person as Rihanna, one of the 7 stars of the best representatives of her class, like an expression that makes him realize how much this beast-like man really is, surpasses her in strength, and Erida watches what is happening with caution. But before he can say anything, Luna nudges Luga and reminds him that he promised not to fight. Luga admits it, but says they started it themselves. Luna replies that it's because his ugly face and talks about the delicious food they were treated to. Hearing this, Erida thinks that perhaps Luga is not his enemy after all and asks what he is doing here. The Beastman points out that they are in his territory. Erida quickly apologizes, explaining that they have no idea how they got there and didn't know whose it was. Land. Luga seems to understand, given that it is impossible for people to reach. Divine land of Arcavia. Hearing this, Erita remembers what Rihanna told him and realizes that they must be talking about the same place. Luga tells them to avoid doing anything that could cause harm, and so that they become more careful because there are tribes of demons and dragons on the island who will not hesitate to pursue them. Erita wonders about the dangerous species that live there and asks Luga to tell him more. About the island, Luga frowns, but admits that it would be difficult for them to navigate without any information, so he agrees to bring the map and disappears as quickly as appeared. Erita watches him disappear and thinks he's a good guy, and Luna smiles and says that Luga always acts tough, but deep down he is reliable and kind. Suddenly, Rihanna grabs her head, and Erita rushes to her, asking what happened. She replies that she was hit by a massive wave of concentrated magic, and now her body is shaking. Erita thinks it must be something unique like magic, but it doesn't seem like just being near an island inhabitant would cause this. Luna lowers her ears, thinking it's her fault, but Oriana shakes her head and says it's her fault, since Luna's magic is still weak. This lifts Luna's spirits a little, and Diana thinks that Luna never blames others, even with such power, and always takes responsibility for herself. Responsibility. Erita thinks the same and respects her, despite the fact that she's younger. At that moment, Luga appears with a map, but seeing that they are already sitting at table and eat, he gets furious because he spent so much time on take the card, and they're relaxing and enjoying the food. Ryan offers him join them, and Luga sits down next to Luna. After he tries the food, he screams across the island, asking why the hell the food is so spicy. Erita figures that such behavior should be typical for the tribe of animals, commenting on their loud exclamations during the consumption of food. After the meal, Luna and Luga roll around in the grass, resembling wild pigs, while Rihanna and Erita head to the river to wash the dishes. After finishing washing the dishes, Erita wonders about the relationship between Luga and Luna. He draws attention to the fact that Luna looks like a fox, while Luga looks more like a wolf, suggesting that they may be blood relatives, although they act like real ones. Family. At this point, Rihanna thanks Erita, and at first he thinks she's talking about the washed dishes. However, Rihanna explains that she is referring to the incident when Luga started threatening them, and Erita stood up for her. He finally understands what she wanted to say, but for him it was just a misunderstanding, since Luga was not their enemy. Rihanna admits that she did not. She expected someone to stand up for her, and in gratitude, she smiled slightly. Erita notices a slight blush on her face, which makes his heart beat faster. Then Rihanna suggests returning to the tent, and Erita agrees with her proposal. He is going to ask Luga about this island. Luga shows him a map of Arcadia and points to territories where animals live, as well as the lands of demons and dragons located further away. He explains that they don't get along with each other, however, since conflicts always lead to. They only encounter great losses from time to time. Elves live in the western part islands, but rarely leave their territory, although sometimes they still encounter animals. After hearing this, Erita wonders if any of the races are trying to improve relations, but Ren answers negatively, explaining that it is not about survival or peace, but about the fact that they live. They've been here for so long that they don't want to fight anymore, although at first Erita was afraid. Encounter all sorts of powerful monsters, but after Luga's story he feels a little calmer. He tells Luga about his desire to stay and live on this island and asks if there is a suitable place to live here, which surprises him quite a bit. Lugu, who replies that there is no room for a weak person to survive here. Erita wants talk about the body God gave him and how he can change but doesn't know how to broach the subject. At that moment, they hear a loud noise, and Luga's eyes light up. He announces that the Imperial Boar is approaching. Rihanna doesn't understand what this means, but Luna is delighted and exclaims that this will be a real feast. To Erida, Lug's question explains that it is a huge piece of meat, but it is difficult to find since they live underground. Hearing this, Erida warns that despite its appearance, this boar is an extremely powerful monster, and if it appeared in the city, all the knights would be summoned. Countries. At that moment, the forest shakes with a powerful roar, and a giant boar appears, crushing trees in its path. Erida and Rihanna freeze in horror. Luga watches boar and notices that it seems to be hungry, since it has been underground for a long time. He then tells Luna to move away, but Luna protests, stating that adults always. That's what they say, and then they take the best pieces for themselves. Hearing this, Luga offers her to do it herself. Defeat the boar if she wants the best meat. And Luna immediately accepts it. Challenge. Meanwhile, the boar is rushing at great speed in their direction. Erida is unsure. Will they be able to stop him, and worries that if they fail, someone might suffer. He looks at Rihanna and makes a decision to face it, and she, panicked, trying to stop him. Erida pins his hopes on the power gained from God and thinks that if he can't stop such a beast, then there is no way. Survive here. Rihanna shouts at him to move, but Erida stands firm. When the boar approaches, Erida holds him with his hands, with all his incredible strength. All are amazed, especially Alyga and Luna, who cannot believe what they have just seen. Alyga wonders if Erida is really human. Erida ignores their surprise and shouts that the meat belongs to him, saying that in this world the law is kill or be killed. He then apologizes to the boar and strikes with all his might. The blow kills Lug and Luna, throws him far away from the boar, and sends the beast itself flying. In the sky, Erida rejoices, saying that the imperial boar is his, but although everyone watches silently, they understand that something not so, because the prey is gone. Erida looks up and finally understands what happened, and everyone starts crying over the lost meat. Rihanna and Erida stand looking into the distance, where a huge boar destroyed most of the forest. Alyga yells at Erida for ruining it. The imperial boar, and Luna also agrees and calls Erida a villain. Poor Erida knows how to respond and can only apologize. Seeing this, Rihanna intervenes and says, everyone calms down, promising to cook food for them later, but they only forgive Erida, to which Alyga and Luna reluctantly agree. Erida looks at Rihanna with embarrassment and thanks her for help. Then Alyga tells him that he can live in the area if he wants to stay on island because food is easy to find there. Erida asks why Alyga said that he can't stay there, and Alyga explains that he thought Erida was human. Then he tells Erida that no man can stop the imperial boar or send him flying with one blow. Erida sighs and believes that he is truly human. Luga smiles and says that he is a good guy, and since Luna has already become attached to him, he can stay there. Erida thanks Luga for permission, then turns to Rihanna and Luna and asks about them. Rihanna replies that she still doesn't know how to get home, and can't survive alone on the island, so she decided to stay with Erida for now. Luna happily exclaims that they can continue playing together. Erida smiles, pleased to see. As Luna and Rihanna are having fun, Erida's expression suddenly changes. He looks up at the sky and points his finger at the huge black dragon hovering above them with its giant wings. Luga stutters and says that this is the cub of Bahamut from the ancient tribe of dragons. Erida realizes that the dragon is holding the same boar he sent flying earlier and wonders how he did it. But before he has time to think about something else, the dragon releases the boar and tells it to fall on them. Everyone starts scream, but Erida says he'll dodge it and uses his absurd strength to stop the giant boar, saving everyone. Afterwards, he asks if everything is okay. Luna says that Erida is incredible and Alyga agrees, saying that Erida is not human. At that moment, Erida notices a black dragon flying towards them and throwing the boar to the ground. Alyga asks if Erida is confident that he can stop the dragon, and Erita is confident. Answers, and Alyga tells him to deal with it while they get ready. Then Erita prepares to fight the flying dragon, but the dragon suddenly transforms into the air around, dissipates, and she transforms into a girl with dragon horns. She smiles at Erita, seeing the ball from this world, and declares that it is worth confessing to her. All are shocked by what is happening, while Erita cannot understand what is happening, because the girl suddenly hugs him and calls him his master, saying that his body is strong and perfect, suitable for hugs. Erita, not knowing what to say, thanks her because he feels that she has no ill intentions, but still doesn't understand why she calls him hers. Gentlemen. He turns to Ariana for help and notices that she is feeling unwell again, and she fell to her knees. He runs up to her and asks if everything is okay, to which she replies that she was struck by a strong energy again. Erita notices that she doesn't look well, and assumes that it is because of the magical pressure of Alyajai and the dragon cub. Then he picks her up and carries her out of there. She blushes and tries to say something, but Erita refuses to listen to her objections and runs away as fast as he can. Meanwhile, the dragon girl tries to pursue them, but Alyga holds her back. They reach a river deep in the forest, where Erita sits Ariana down against a tree. He notices her pale face and hugs her, asking her to calm down and breathe a little. They remain there in a semi-awkward embrace while she tries catch his breath. Erita is embarrassed to see that Rihanna is also uncomfortable, while suddenly doesn't fall asleep in his arms, which surprises him, but then he smiles, thinking that she must be very tired after everything that happened today. At that moment he hears a noise in the bushes and sees Luna, who asks if Diana is okay and not hurt, whether she is near Erita. Erita shakes his head and tells her not to worry, explaining that Ariana really enjoys spending time with her. He then suggests, Luna, if she is really worried, try to suppress her magic as much as possible. More when she is around Rihanna, and Luna agrees, saying she will try. Erita then asks Luna to look after Ariana for a while as he is going to find out why the dragon girl came to them. Meanwhile, Alyga holds the girl back, who continues to demand that she be released, but he refuses because he knows that she would run away. Then he sees Erita coming out of the forest and excitedly asks if everything is she okay? To which Erita replies that Rihanna has calmed down. He approaches the girl and asks her name, to which she smiles and says that her name is Tiltu. She is the daughter of the great Bermuda and part of the tribe of ancient dragons living on the island. Erita imagines Bamut as a powerful dragon that he had only read about in comics and introduces himself, saying that he started living here only yesterday. She praises his name and again calls him her master, to which Erita finally asks why she calls him that. Tiltu is surprised and says that it should be obvious because he is passionate. Confessed to her, and she happily accepted his confession. Erita is stunned, because he had no idea. When he confessed to her, which causes surprise to Tilt, and she asks about the imperial boar, which he sent, saying that it was a powerful magical beast and that in their tribe this is how they declare their love. Erita understands that she is talking about the boar that fell from the sky, and asks her to explain what exactly she meant, to which she replies that she was resting when the imperial boar fell from the sky, and when she went to see where it came from, he took it upon himself. Then she found Erita, and since dragonesses only accept those who are stronger than them, I thought it was a proposal. He entered into marriage and returned the boar, thereby demonstrating that he accepted the offer. Now they will form a family and eat together. Hearing this, the brain, Arata's mind breaks down and he realizes that this was all just a big misunderstanding. The story with the boar was just an accident, but he still feels guilty for not doing anything. Explained. Then he tells her that it was an unfortunate coincidence and the boar just happened to be next to her. Then Tilda asks him if he thought ever proposed to her, and sadness overwhelms her mind. She sits down, on the floor and begins to draw circles with his magic wand, saying that even among dragons, she's too strong and no one wants to get close to her. She really thought that, found someone. Adia feels terrible because, even though she is young, she looks very lonely, and he doesn't want to hurt her. He looks at the boar and has an idea. So he calls Tilty and says that they should eat the boar together. She looks at him with tears in his eyes and asks if he is serious or just trying trick her into sending him away, but he takes her hand and says they can eat together as friends. Tilta looks at him in surprise, but then smiles and says that she, a good cook. She shows him that she can breathe fire. Then Adia tells her to. She gets busy roasting the boar and everyone returns to Rihanna to ask how they should cook the boar. Tilta joyfully shouts that she will help, and Ada enters the forest, calling for Rihanna and Luna, and they both come out to him. Rihanna greets Atu, the divine beast, and apologizes for scaring her earlier by turning into a Super Saiyan. But Rihanna says that everything is in okay. And Alyaga smiles slightly and says that Ada is also very strong. Meanwhile, Rhea looks at Tilt and asks who she is, since she hasn't seen her transform before she lost consciousness. Tilda excitedly says that she is one of the strongest dragons on the island. Hearing this, Rhea looks at Atu, waiting for confirmation, and he nods, saying that this is the same dragon. At that moment, Tilta, without warning, hugs Ada and says that she is also his wife. When Oriana hears this, she looks at Ada with an expression like, what kind of weird guy is this? And Ada panicked, thinking that now she considers him a strange guy, and begins to explain everything to her. After the explanation, Rihanna wonders if, is Ada Loki blessed because all he does is bring confusion? At times, Tilda just smiles and asks Rihanna to call her by her first name because they love the same guy. This shocks Ada, and Rihanna quickly says that she knows him. I've only been with Ada for 2 days and they haven't met. But Tilda says everything's fine because that she's only known her husband for a few hours and feels the same way. Then she asks if the girls want someone strong who could protect them. Rihanna blushes even more and says that it is not so. At this moment, Luna says that she feels the same thing since Atea held Rihanna some time ago. Atea then decides it's time. Return to the boar, and Rhea laughs, agrees and goes forward while Ada on. He pauses for a moment, thinking about how tired he will be if he continues like this. Spirit. When they approach the boar, Ada finally sees how huge it is. Rihanna says, 8 that she would cut open his belly, and he would take care of the meat. Tilda lifts the boar in the right moment. Rihanna thanks Tilty and thinks about how hard things have become since then, how Ada appeared. He arrived on the island, but now it's time to show off his skills. He then activates his magic and summons a barrage of wind blades that they instantly rip open the monster's belly. Alker smiles and says to leave the rest him. Then he jumps up and snatches out the monster's entrails, cleaning everything with powerful blows. When Menudo sees this, he exclaims that it's incredible. And Luna too smiles, saying that Alker is the best hunter in their tribe. Having finished, Alker wipes the remaining blood from his face, and Ryan evaluates his work and hands him a few towels. Now all you have to do is clean the meat and start cooking. Adia also thanks her for help, and Rihanna asks how they will eat it all, to which Adia asks if they can. They use magic for this. Rihanna nods but says that her storage magic prevents food from spoiling, but there's no way to fit everything into its storage. Then Menudos remembers something and offers to place the meat in his magical storage. He closes eyes, tries to visualize the meat of the imperial boar, which disappears, and gives the command, so it fits in there. The meat disappears quickly, and everyone praises the magic of storage. Minatosa. At this point, Liana stands up with a forced smile and asks how he can use storage magic and how much space does it have, why even the 7-star shape, like, she doesn't have that much space, to which Menudos laughs nervously. Iriana says that for sure. We'll ask him a few more questions later. Outside the tent, a wild boar is being roasted over a fire, and that's it. Eagerly awaiting preparations. Alker says she looks amazing, and Diana. She carefully checks the meat before declaring it ready. She tries everyone. Calm down and says that there is enough for everyone so they can eat slowly. Alker and Menudos takes the largest pieces with chopsticks, and Luna and Tiltam dip the meat in sweet. The sauce that Rihanna made. Adia looks at Rihanna and thinks that the piece of meat that she's cooking now, the best part of the boar that melts in your mouth. He understands that at this. For a moment, no one realizes how delicious it really is. Ada looks at the meat and thinks it's his, but before he can grab it, a pair of tongs hits him in the hand, and Rihanna tells him to share with the others. The group enjoys the food all day, and when night falls, they go home. Later, Rihanna and Menudos sit by the fire near. Tense, and Rihanna says that today was a crazy day. Ella laughs and replies, "Yesterday. It was crazy. But today was something completely different." Rihanna thanks him again for rescue, and Adia admits that it was probably his fault too, but says that he wants thank her for everything she did, from cooking to setting up the tent. Then he says that he really wants to live on this island and use his strong body to protect her, to be useful. Rihanna looks at him in surprise and says that no one has said this for a long time because most people only see her, tool or monster. Adia finds this terrifying, and Rian explains that this is the fate of the 7 star mages, and she is even considered one of the weakest but still seen as much higher. Ordinary magicians, and no one imagines that someone like her might need protection. Menudos looks at her sadly, but she smiles and says that this only proves how strange he is. She explains that if the creatures they discovered on island will appear in the human world, the entire human race will be forced to fight against them to save themselves. And Ada is already stronger than them because people are simply not capable about what these creatures can do. Liana says she didn't want to ask about it at the very beginning, but now she's really interested in finding out who he is. Atia is silent and reflects that even though they've only known each other for 2 days, he trusts her, but he's still not sure whether to tell her about his reincarnation. He is afraid that she will think that he crazy or a liar and will stop trusting him. He looks up and thinks that if she won't believe him, he'll be alone again, but he doesn't want to lie to her. So he looks at her and says that he is not from this world. Liana looks at him in surprise, and after that, as she listens to his whole story, she realizes that he died in another world and, having met God, he was sent to this island. Atia still doesn't know how she react, but to his surprise, Liana says it makes sense. Tia blinks, saying that he's not lying and nervously moving his hands. Liana smiles and says that despite the fact that it is difficult for her to believe in his meeting with God, everything else about him is so strange that it can't be normal. She saw him throw monsters into the air and did things that no ordinary person could do, so it's easy to believe her that he is not from this world. Hearing this, Ada sighs with relief, and Liana says that he worked hard and hopes to get along well with him. Atia is surprised because he expected that she will leave, but she smiles and thanks him. A week has passed since they found themselves on the island, and he feels like he's finally getting used to this life. All his fears about survival disappeared, and he had already gotten used to this kind of life at the campsite. Liana even began teaching him magic, and he can now use several different types of magic. Although recently he wonders if she's dependent on him and wants to do more to make sure she's not so dependent. Was very worried. When he walks through the forest, he hears some sound. Suddenly, someone comes to him. A rabbit runs up, and it seems to be the same one he met on his first day. Erida feels guilty and holds out his hands as before. The rabbit jumps up and hits him in the stomach. Erida takes the rabbit and gently strokes it. At that moment, Liana appears and walks up to him with a gentle smile, commenting on how he woke up today. Then she translates attention to the rabbit and asks if he wants to hold it in his arms, but the baby does not. Calms down. Then Erita lightly touches his nose, and at the moment when he does this, the rabbit passes out in his arms. He panics and says that he can't. Used a lot of force. Then he turns to Liana, asking what he should do. Liana looks at him and asks if he knows what kind of rabbit it is. Erita shrugs and says he just thought it was a common wild rabbit since such creatures existed in his ancient world as well. But Liana sees it clearly and explains that it's a monster. Disaster. Erita still doesn't understand what this means. Then Liana adds that it's catastrophe-level creature, and if one of them appears in the human world, only 7 great magicians or the most powerful adventurers will be able to resist him. Erita looks at the rabbit in his arms again and thinks that it really does look like that's it. What existed in his previous world has evolved dangerously here, and this explains that the strange look the rabbit had given him before, even without Erita had pulled away before Tiltu had time to continue her demands, hearing her approaching him and hugs him with that same infectious energy. Rihanna greeted him and asked how he was feeling in the morning. Tiltu excitedly replied that she had come play with his lordship. Hearing this, Erita wondered what kind of game she had in mind. Then Tiltu noticed the rabbit and became even more delighted, exclaiming how fast they were and strong. Suddenly Luna appeared and hugged Ratu, but when he smiled at her, she blushed when she saw this and hid behind his back. Then Sarada kindly asked her what happened. Rihanna patted Luna on the head and praised her. Seeing this, it pouted and demanded the same treatment. Hesitantly touching her head, Erita noticed how she lit up with pleasure. After that, they decided to enter the forest, and once there, Erita suggested having a hunting competition. He and Tiltu would be on one team, and Rihanna and Luna, and the winner will be the one who catches the most prey. Luna immediately said, Rihanna to do her best, while Tiltu confidently shouted that the team will win. Then everyone ran into the forest in different directions. Luna managed to get one servant, but Erita and Tiltu were having difficulty finding anything. Tiltu heard Luna. She praised Rihanna and complained about it to Erita. Erita explained that Rihanna was an adventurer, SS rank, and probably knows all about hunting, but also noticed that there were no signs of animals. It began to boast that the animals must be afraid of the appearance. Her monstrous dragon power, and Erita thought that it must be true, but it was useless for the competition. He wondered if the moon had the same problem unless Rihanna isn't doing all the work for her team. Tiltu screamed that they would lose if everyone will continue in the same spirit and insisted that they need to do something. But Erita doesn't have strong magic, and he doesn't know any hunting techniques yet. Then he looked at his hand, trying to think of something, and suddenly an idea came to him, and he quickly sat up to concentrate, thinking that this is the body that God gave him. And if he really concentrated, he would be able to do something. Suddenly he heard a sound. Prey and hurried there, followed him. At first he thought it was a boar again, but to his surprise he found a lot of rabbits running through the forest. Initially he thought they were going to attack him, but soon realized they were running away from Tiltu because she was a dragon, and now he couldn't let them escape. When the rabbits started running, he quickly grabbed a rock and knocked down several of them. Tiltu was able to catch one too. One, and Erita shouted proudly, pointing out that he still hadn't lost. He knelt down on the ground and used the earth magic that Rihanna had taught him, visualizing a trap, and the earth rose up, forming a cage. As soon as the last rabbit approached, it warned that the rabbit could easily break something so fragile, but the rabbit didn't attack and lost consciousness. It was surprised when Erita came up and asked her if she was okay, and she mumbled that he was really different. After that, they returned to the tent, and Luna told them that their hunt had been great. Light was too. There she greeted Erita, saying that she would take care of the prey they had caught. Seeing this, Tilta hid behind Erita and said that Light called her a lonely dragon. Erita remembered how she could only speak freely with Iriana, but had difficulty with others. During the boar hunt, she was so excited that it didn't matter, but now that everything has calmed down, she has become shy again. She already told him that the old dragon had a hard time making friends, and that made Erita want to help her even more. At this time, Luna asks Erita how many rabbits they caught, and before he can answer, he looks at Tilta and asks her a question. She blushes and nervously says, "We caught 3. Luna takes Tilta's hand and enthusiastically asks how they managed to do it, since rabbits are usually difficult to catch. Tilta looks at Erita, seems to want him to answer for her, but he only nods, encouraging her to try, believing that if she could open up like that, no one would call her a weak dragon anymore. Tilta straightens up and timidly tells Luna that they will begin training immediately. The girls smile at each other, and Erita looks at them with quiet pride. Luna calls Erita over and says that he and Tilta will play until dinner is ready, and they run away together, like best friends. A month had passed since Erita arrived on this island and, looking on the map, he realizes that he still can't explore the southern part of the island. Meadows confirms this and explains that the younger members of the demon and dragon tribes are hostile, and, although Erita is fine, he worries about Rihanna. Erita then asks about the territory where the elves live, and Luga says that the elves prefer to be isolated, but no one can tell how they will react when they see a person. Luna mentions that there are also people living there, spirits, and suggests that they will be fine if they are careful. Erita ponders what he has learned and realizes that each tribe seems to have its own hierarchy. For example, in the village of the beast tribe, ordinary animals live ordinary lives, while divine beasts have a higher status. Meanwhile, in the elven village, the high elves are in charge of everything, and those who control the spirits are treated as gods. So perhaps the best place to visit first is the tribal village. Animals. Luga agrees and says that he will tell Erita everything he needs to know, but recommends taking a gift with you, for example, the meat of an imperial boar, and then the residents. The villages will welcome him with open arms. Erita eats dinner and then asks if there is some way to leave the island, but Light replies that it is impossible and explains that there is a powerful barrier around the island, which makes it completely closed. The island is easy to get to, but impossible to get out of. He says that, according to elders of their village, this barrier was created by God to keep out the strongest monsters so they don't escape into the world and bring chaos. He says it's divine, Arcadia Island, and the outside world is calm only because everything dangerous is locked away here. Hearing this, Erita suggests that he was reincarnated because he wanted to explore island, but it was never the right place for Rihanna. She's been helping him ever since as he arrived. So Erita decides to help her in return and promises to find a way for her. Left the island. He thinks she will live a good life there and will make sure that Rihanna returned home safely. That evening they were sitting in the tent and Erita said, Rihanna, that the first thing they need to do is visit the animals and ask for permission. Stay on their property as long as they live there, no questions asked. Rihanna agrees. Him as he finishes outlining his plan. Erita asks who wants to go with them. First, you need to take a bath. Rihanna immediately starts getting ready and explains that she's all sweated. After this, Erita leaves the shop and thinks that even without the bandits it is necessary. Remain vigilant because there are other monsters out there. He knows that Rihanna can only handle weaker monsters, but his God-given body is capable. Sense any danger. Then he concentrates and at that moment he hears something from above. When he looks up at the sky, he notices an approaching shadow and a human figure flying straight towards him. As he gets closer, he sees that it is a girl with long hair and elven ears who calmly lands in front of him and says, "She came because it smells delicious here." Her eyes resemble those of a predator such as Lugo or Tiltu, and she seems to have considerable power. She introduces herself as Elelmina Vermilion and says that she is a vampire who has been living here for a very long time. Erita says his name and explains that he somehow ended up here without understanding how. She smiles and says that finally something interesting is happening on this island. Then she looks at House and asks if she can taste what she felt. Before he can react, she summons a huge crystal shard and throws it at him. Erita destroys the crystal before it hits the door and yells at her for it, but she only asks how fast he is since she attacked first. Erita calms down and says that confident in his physical form, which makes Lemona laugh, and she calls on dozens crystals flying at him at full speed. Erita destroys the crystals alone. After another, but one breaks through and hits the house. Erita runs to the rubble to check. Is Rihanna okay? But she comes out of the smoke, wrapped only in a towel, and tells him, so he doesn't apologize, but quickly focuses again because the vampire can again attack. She claps her hands and says it was incredible and offers them more flirt. Hearing this, Rihanna asks her who she is. Erita points to Wilhelmina and says that she is some kind of top vampire, and Wilhelmina laughs again and tells them, continue flirting. Erita still doesn't understand what she means, and Wilhelmina explains that unlike normal vampires who drink blood, the strongest one feeds on emotions, and at the moment she is enjoying Rihanna's embarrassment, thanking her for a delightful romantic comedy, although Erita has no idea what kind of comedy it is. Speech. He thinks about the attack and realizes that she is weak enough not to even scratch him, and that the spell was more aimed at Rihanna and fell next to the bathtub, which basically means that she never intended to hurt anyone. Then she flies closer to them and says that she really liked the change of emotions in Rihanna caused by her feelings for her loved one. Hearing this, Rihanna screams that she won't allow this repeat itself and begins to strengthen its magic. Seeing this, Wilhelmina says that feels Rihanna's anger with a piquant hint of embarrassment, and she likes it too. At this very moment, Han unleashes a barrage of wind blades that destroy the vampire on the spot, and the body shatters into pieces. Rihanna watches in disbelief as the pieces turn into a cloud bats that circle above them before restoring Wilhelmina again, not without causing her any harm. Then she approaches them and asks if they really thought that would be enough to kill her. She winks at Khan and she says that her emotions made the dessert this time just perfect, and with a little stretch, admits that she is now satisfied, as she received good food from some random strangers. With that, she turns around and tells Rihanna to add more next time. More honey. Both Rihanna and Erita silently watch her until she disappears among the trees. Erita is still pondering her words about futility, gathering his anger. Erita sighs, feeling that the quiet days may be far behind us. A few days after Wilhelmina's sudden appearance, Erita heads to the village. Divine beasts. He stands at the entrance to the village and admits that he imagined something more fantastic, but it looks like a completely ordinary village. At this moment, Lurga and the girl next to him greets the visitors with a warm smile, and Lurga immediately laughs. He asks who this girl is, and Lurga introduces her as his wife. Hearing this, Erita freezes in place and can't hold back laughter. The girl bows politely and introduces herself. Her name is Livia. In response, Erita introduces himself and stutters, talking about marriage. Livia feels awkwardness and reports that Lurga had recently left the house, and she was worried that he might be cheating on her. He told her, and if it turned out to be true, she would drown in the ocean. Then Lurga changes the subject and asks if they should show the guests the village. As they walk through the village, other beastmen are encountered, and Erita soon realizes that none of them have the power, like Lurg, to which Lurg explains that the people here now are ordinary beastmen. But long ago, their ancestors were powerful divine beasts, and part of that power still remains. Still flows in certain bloodlines. Those who inherited this power live at the pinnacle hill, while the rest live in the village below. Hearing this, Rihanna realizes that There is something like nobility and commoners here. Lurga explains that they never asked for worship or titles, but the villagers began calling them gods. At that time, as divine beasts hunt and protect, beastmen cultivate the land and provide community in other ways. Luna adds that everyone is busy with their roles and is just trying survive on this dangerous island. Now Erita understands that since the beastmen are not have strength, they depend on stronger ones to survive. Finally, Lurga says that they came and pointed to a giant building that looked more like a palace than a house. Looking at this rich lifestyle, Erita almost thinks that Lurga is deceiving him, but still asks if this is his house. But Lurga shakes his head and says that this is the elder's estate. He explains that divine beasts like him are born with powers inherited from ancient, but the elder still carries this legacy more than anyone else. Moon smiles and says that her grandmother is so strong that even if all the animals will fight against her together, they will not win. After that, they go inside and they see a woman sitting there, from whom comes an aura with 10 manifestations of bad vibrations, casually smoking a pipe. She greets them, and both Erita and Rihanna are amazed to see her. She laughs and says that they must be the same strangers she heard about, and introduces herself as Phoenix, the leader of the divine beast tribe. Erita and Rihanna thank her for the warm welcome, to which Phoenix replies that they should not be formal and call her just Zaku. She adds that she hates being called an elder, but Lurga insists that it's better to call her that, and they act out this scene. They've been doing it for a long time, know each other, and despite the lack of blood relationship, Erita feels between them a strong connection which makes him smile. After that, Phoenix says that Luna has a lot talked about them and how Luna likes them, which means they are not bad people. Then he raises his finger and collects a small clot of light on its tip, throwing a fireball in Erita. Erita, always acting spontaneously, touches the ball with his hand, and it turns into a wave of flame, surprising everyone present. Erita casually holds the fire, and seeing this, Phoenix begins to laugh and praise him. Rihanna looks stunned and says that there is more magic in this fire than she has ever seen in her life, and she didn't think that Phoenix would throw fire so carelessly, and Erita, like a fool, will catch him. Erita just smiles and says that he didn't realize how strong he was. Fire. Finally, having extinguished the flames, Phoenix comes closer and says that it has been a long time. Felt so hot. He instructs Luga to take care of the others, to show them a village, and then they will have a celebration. Luga apologizes for Phoenix's behavior, to which Erita replies that he's already getting used to this island. When night falls, everyone gathers in the central square for the celebration. Phoenix raises his glass and announces to everyone that Luga brought new friends, and one of them is a monster who remained unharmed after his flame. The villagers applaud, and the celebration begins. Luna offers Rihanna a plate of food, and Erita notices that she is a little worried about Rihanna, but feels that the divine beasts are holding back her magic for now. Erita tries the food and enjoys it. The taste of Liana's chop sandwiches and imperial boar meat. Seeing this, Phoenix also takes a bite and starts screaming that this is the best boar meat he has ever had. Then he hugs Rihanna tightly, praising her culinary skills. At that moment, a powerful explosion shakes the square, and several people fly into the air. Erita and Yana look tired. Look at the chaos unfolding. Phoenix pays no attention and says that the youth are simply is going crazy. Erita doesn't think that explains everything, because he feels someone's approaching. At this time, a giant guy named Gauss, a descendant of the divine beast Behemoth, with Rihanna's sandwich in hand, and asks who made it. Rihanna nervously replies that it is her, and then the beast points at her and says that she will become his wife. Rihanna is surprised, and Gauss repeats this. When Erita approaches, Luna hurries to protect him, and he feels relieved to see this. Gauss Rossner asks what Erita wants, and Erita replies that a random guy can't just show up and announce things like that. Gauss picks up the sandwich again and asks if Rihanna made it. Then he turns to her and shouts that she must become his wife and cook these. Sandwiches are forever for him. Luna notices that something is wrong with Rihanna, and Erita sees how she covers his mouth with his hand. He thinks the divine beasts were holding back their magic for Rihanna's sake. But Gus does the opposite, trying to subdue her. Erita is clearly furious, but Gus tells him, "Get out of the way or he'll throw it away." Erita takes off his jacket, saying he's more than, "I'm happy to try." When they're both ready to clash, Suzaku gives them a smile and says that fighting over a girl is a great idea, but throwing out a guest is the height of bad manners. Gauss Gosso tells her not to interfere, but Suzaku replied that it was he spoils everyone's fun, even though she understands his feelings. Then she raises her hand and a giant flame appears, announcing that the issue will be decided in a duel between divine beasts. Erita and Rihanna ask what's going on, and Aluga explains that they pray to their ancestors through trials and battles, and when they cannot resolve something, they take an oath and fight, and the losers must yield to the winner. Erita asks will it be whether he will fight against Gauss for Rihanna, and Gauss confirms that he will. Suzaku looks at the crowd and asks if anyone has any objections. Luga objects and tries to remind she that they are guests, but Suzaku tells him not to be such a bore. Rihanna looks at Arata's eyes were full of worry, and he told her to trust him. She smiles and says that he trusts them. The animals form a circle around them, and Gauss declares that we'll take Ariana, but Erita is sure that he will never allow someone like him to stay with her. Then Phoenix announces that if Gauss wins, Rian will become his wife, and if Erita wins, she will fulfill any of his wishes as far as possible. Erita asks, is she serious? And she swears that she will keep her word. Erita thinks that she probably lives here since ancient times, so maybe she knows a way to leave island. Then he takes a look at Ariana and decides that the best way to repay her kindness is to take her home, and to do that he needs to win the duel. Suzaku raises hand and says that the fight should honor their pride, and gives the signal to begin. The duel begins and they clash with brute force. Ri and Luna watch anxiously, and Erita. He understands that Gauss is even stronger than his uncle, but our hero is not ready to retreat. He blocks the first blow and responds with a counterattack which surprises Gauss, who did not expect that the man stop his attack. Suzaku laughs and says that Erita continues to surprise her. Erita walks forward again, and the crowd screams with admiration, wondering how a person can do so. Move. Erita believes that his body is a gift from God, and he has never trained, but knows he needs to win because he saw how scared Oriana was and he can let her down. He screams that it's time to end this and go for broke. Forcing. Gauss falls to his knees like a plate falling from a table and declares his victory. Suzaku declares Erita the winner. While Gauss is defeated, he doesn't believe it. Then Erita turns to Ariana, who is already waiting with a towel and is glad that everything is okay with him. And Erita smiles, knowing she was worried about him. At that moment, Luna hugs him and Luga laughs and praises Erita, saying that Gauss may not be smart, but he is the strongest here, and Erita came out and fought him on equal terms. Erita is embarrassed by Luga's compliment and notices a straight line marked on the ground, meaning it didn't deviate and just overloaded. Gauss approaches again, and Erita prepares for battle. But instead Gauss reaches out, shakes his hand and says that he respects him and wants to be his friend. Erita is surprised but takes him by the hand, and Gauss asks for a rematch, saying, "This time I will definitely win." Hearing this, the other animals shout that they also want to fight him and show their strength. Erita grins and says that he will fight with them at once and scatter them like old clothes. After some time he realizes that it's already morning. Erita takes a deep breath and notices that he and Luna is sleeping right next to him. Luga and his wife are also dozing, while Suzaku is resting. Erida finally feels and realizes that he came here to leave, but never. I imagined that this would turn into such a wild episode, worthy of a chronicle of the lives of famous people. Personalities. The next day, Erita and Rihanna return from the village of Divine Bestas, and Erita, sleeping in a hammock when Rihanna walks by and thinks about how hard it was for him yesterday. She gently touches his hair. He says she looked great last night. When Erita opens his eyes, she says that if he falls asleep now, he won't be able to sleep. At night, Erita gets up and admits he's a little nervous, stretching slowly. Rihanna asks him if he is tired, but Erita replies that he feels fine and is not. Noticed himself falling asleep. He thinks that he hasn't rested like this for a long time. Why? In his past. In his life he was always busy with work, and even when he returned home he could not stop thinking about. The next day, Rihanna smiles, seeing him so relaxed, and Erita smiles too. Why are you so happy to be on this island? Rihanna smiles happily, seeing that he feels exactly like that. Erita remembers how he initially wanted to live alone, but now filled with curiosity about the island and all the creatures that live there. He comes to the conclusion that it was much more interesting and that he no longer wanted a quiet and lonely life because that being with others is much more rewarding. He promises Rihanna that he will do everything possible to. She came back home, but she looks at him in confusion. Erita asks her does she want to come back, and Rihanna answers. Then she remembers what he said about wanting stay on the island, so she just assumed that he would stay there and she will support. Hearing this, Erita realizes that he never said he wanted to come back home, and didn't even try to find a way to leave the island, so maybe she was worried about this. Feeling only embarrassment, he decides to find a place where he could disappear. But Rihanna quickly tells him to stop being stupid. Later that evening, they sit down at the table, and Erita admits that he misunderstood her and offers them a good talk about what will happen next. Liana asks why he thought she wanted leave, and Erita replies that she came on a real mission and got lost in the storm. Therefore, he thought she wanted to come back. She admits it's true, but says she never didn't tell the whole story. When Erita asks about it, she begins to open up and tells that she was left an orphan until her first teacher, the first Archmage, found her among the 7 stars, who accepted her and made her his student. He seemed inspired. Monk from Garp because his training was as brutal as Laffy's. Her abandoned in a forest teeming with monsters and forced to survive using only magic. She strained herself so much that she lost consciousness. She tells Erita that she is getting it's bad even when she just thinks about those days, but that's how she became one of the 7 Archmages. Erita sees her silent and asks what happened, and she hesitates, a moment before admitting that she had never told him she had come here directly. The king's order to find the elixir of immortality. But it was all a trap. She tells that after she became an Archmage, a certain disgusting duke from the kingdom asked her to become his personal magician, but she refused to serve the nobleman because she had enough strength to support herself. Despite this, the duke did not. He looked at her as if she didn't see him as a magician, but only as a woman he wanted to possess. After she refused him, he turned the kingdom against her and used his influence to crush her. He even threatened the orphanage where she grew up, which left her no choice. Then she took advantage of this decree to find the elixir of life and fled to this island to escape them. Rihanna knows that after the shipwreck they probably thought she was dead and refused to give her shelter. But she was exhausted by everything that was happening. Erita looks at her and thinks that she she gave up magic. She fought harder than anyone else and won her place among the strongest. But despite all this, no one saw her achievements. She was perceived only as a woman, and on this island no one knows what she had to go through to get here, and no one will reward her efforts. He says she worked so hard to become an Archmage, and now it doesn't matter at all, and he hurts for her. Rihanna smiles tiredly and admits that she never wanted to be a magician. She just wanted to be similar to the sisters from the orphanage. But her teacher said that if she becomes powerful magician, then she would be able to do more for her monastery, and then she did everything possible. Hearing this, Erida says that this must mean that she doesn't want to go back to continent, to which Rihanna agrees and tells him not to worry because the moon and Tiltus is kind to her, and she also becomes friends with Luga. She declares that she wants to live here, a new life. Instead of turning back, Erida smiles and extends his hand to her, saying that they will now live together. Rihanna takes his hand, and Erida feels that no words are needed, just a silent promise between friends to walk side by side, and he knows that it means a lot to both of them. A few days later, Erida wakes up and decides take a walk, asking Rihanna if she wanted to go with him, but she was already standing there with a thick book in his hands and says that he wants to spend the morning reading a magic book. Erida recognizes it as the book Wilhelmina brought as a pretext to laugh at them and broke the bathroom, but Rihanna is not impressed. Why didn't he see any remorse on Wilhelmina's face? Then she says, giving away something precious is so easy. No matter what anyone says, it means something. Erida is curious about what is actually inside the book, and Rihanna replies that it contains a type of magic considered mythical, and as an archmage she is curious. Erida teases her and says, how could she say that she only wanted to help others and didn't want to be an archmage? Hearing this, she replies that this is different. Erida replies that if the book helps protect him, then she's worth it. After that, he decides to take a walk and leaves the shop. At this time, he feels the floor shaking and wonders what's going on. A few moments later, Egla appears in the forest and asks if they have seen the moon, to which Erida replies that she had dinner with them yesterday and went home as usual and asks what happened. Hearing this, Luga reports that Luna hasn't returned home since yesterday and he doesn't know where she is. Lena overhears the conversation, comes out of the shop and asks what happened, and says that Luna hasn't returned home since yesterday. Then Lena suggests going looking for her, but Luga says that he will resolve this issue in the race, and asks to warn Luna so that she goes home if he comes back. With these words, he turns and runs into the forest, while Erida and Elena remain standing. Elena then says that they should go to search because the moon is not weak in. Inevitably, she would suffer the fate of being defeated. Forest monsters, and obviously something happened to her. Erida agrees with these words, and declares that he will search for the moon while she waits for him here. He turns around and rushes into the forest, carefully looking around, but there are no. He finds no traces of the moon, and he begins to be tormented by thoughts that his beloved could have gotten into trouble since a whole day had already passed since her disappearance. Then he recalls that during their last meeting she was, as always, happy reporting her desire to have a celebration to mark their wedding anniversary. She said then that is going to leave early to prepare a gift for them, and the thought makes Erida suggested that something might have happened to her during the search or production of this gift. At that moment, he feels her presence nearby and rejoices, deciding that she's fine, but she still doesn't understand why she hasn't returned home yet. Erida approaches the tree and sees Luna sitting with her back to him. He calls her name and she shudders in surprise. He says he's incredibly happy to find her, but he wants find out what's going on here. Luna steps aside and shows him several wolf cubs. Seeing them, Erida kneels down in front of her and asks where these little ones came from. And she explains, with sadness in her voice, that she wanted to present them as a gift to Livia, because she dreamed of having a child. Erida clutches his head and asks where the parents of these wolves, and then a crazy thought comes to him and he asks if she killed them. But Luna screams that she didn't kill anyone, and says that when she found wolf cubs, their parents were already dead. Erida asks her to calm down and explain everything in detail, assuring that he doesn't blame her for anything. She begins her story by saying that after saying goodbye to Aradoi went in search of a birthday present and wanted to find the lost one. Wolf cub, but eventually discovered a whole family. She recalls that the mother of the wolf cubs was attacked. Bear, and she tried to drive away the predator and save the babies, but as a result the mother got seriously injured and died soon after. Luna says she tried to take the wolf cubs to others, monsters who wouldn't touch them, but the wolf cubs didn't want to leave. She even buried them. The mother tried to explain to the children that their mother was no longer there, but they didn't understand anything and refused to leave, and she was afraid to leave them alone, fearing for their lives. Luna says that she protected them all this time so that no one would attack them. Erita gently strokes Luna's head, praises her for her concern, and asks what she intends to do next. Luna replies that he will try to talk to them again when they wake up. Erita asks whether they will understand her, but she admits that she is not sure about this. She explains that these wolf cubs, bloodthirsty wolves, and when they grow up, they will become very strong. Erita thinks that if the wolf cubs grow up very strong, they may become dangerous and harm Lena, so maybe it would be better to get rid of them. But at that moment the wolf cubs wake up and Erita notices one of them looking at him. They turn and run towards their grave. Mother, and Luna says that they stopped at her grave. The wolf cubs sniff the ground and they lie down, and Erita thinks that this means that they already know that they will never see each other again. His mother, proving that even monsters can feel the pain of loss. Erita kneels down next to Luna and asks if she can raise them, and Luna, he confidently replies that he will teach them everything. Erita says that they should be allowed. The wolf cubs say goodbye to their mother and then take them home, and Luna agrees to this. Suddenly the tenant appears behind Erita and says that the moon has already been found, and Erita apologizes for not telling him about it sooner. The tenant looks at Erita, who is next to the moon, and the puppies are sleeping on his lap, and says that now understands that he won't be able to leave. The tenant takes his side and says that he can explain everything later. He asks if Luna was working, and Erita explains that she barely slept all night, so he wants to let her rest, but they shouldn't stay here for a long time. The tenant replies that everything is fine because Livia will not be angry with Luna, she'll be angry with him. Erita praises Luga, who blushes a little and says that it's a little weird to get a compliment from another guy, but if it was his girlfriend, his wife would have wiped him off the face of the earth. Erita puts on a forced smile and assures that Livia loves him. Then they notice that Luna has finally woken up. She reaches out to him, and the tenant picks her up, starting his journey home with Erita. A week after that, when Luna took the puppies, they named the boys Karigar because of the different sounds they made. Publish. Erita says they began communicating with the animal people and receiving help in various ways, and their lives become more civilized. He interrupts his thoughts and tells Lena that they need to build a house because it must be hard for her to be there in the same room with a guy all day. Lena replies that she doesn't feel it, but soon understands what he meant and suggests building a house where everyone will have their own room. Erita explains that he plans to build 2 houses, and Lena immediately says that there's a lot to prepare. The next day, when Tilta finds out about this, she declares that she doesn't mind if her husband builds a house to live with another girl, but she also wants room in this house. Erita looks at her as if he is tired of this, and she complains about his attitude, saying that building a house for 2 is like creating a love nest, and she wants to live with him in this nest. Then Lena comes with a house plan and says they can add another room because the elder gave them carte blanche to the ground and they can build a bigger house. Suddenly, Luna shouts that she wants to space in the house, and Elena agrees. A week later, Erita and Elena are standing in front of the 2-story, a house surrounded by a fence. Erita looks at it and says he didn't expect it to be built so easy. Elena explains that everything happened quickly because they used magic, and he helped strengthen everything. She points to the wall they made with magic earth, and says that it is now strong enough to withstand the blows of Tilta Gauss. Erida says that he had to endure it, otherwise she wouldn't protect them, since he recalls Miss Vampire's amazing attempts to push them into Hong Kong and the giant boar, who could invade and destroy the house. Elena agrees and says that he did most of the work, so he should be proud. Then she says that they were able to. Only the exterior needs to be finished and the inside still needs to be cleaned. They enter the house and talk about ordering a dining table for him. Erida explains that Tiltu likes to sleep in a higher place, so her room will be like a loft, and underneath it is Luna's room and the magic inn. The walls absorb shock absorbers, blocking the sound of Tiltu's footsteps. Erida looks into the neighboring rooms and says that they have prepared 2 additional rooms for guests. Lena and he will be live next door. Lena notes that it will soon get dark, so it's better to spend the night in tent and buy furniture later. They enter the tent and Erida thinks that this will be the last night they will sleep there, and remembers how he spent the night there for the first time, very nervous and happy to be in the same tent with Lena. He gets a little. It feels good to think that tomorrow he will move to a new house. Elena notices his sad face and says they can sleep in the tent whenever they want. This makes Erida smile, and to think that changing tents won't change what they have because they are already like a family. He says they can sleep together whenever she wants. Elena smiles slightly in response. The next day, Erida stands in front of the house and says that they have finished decorating. Inside, suddenly the bell rings. He opens the door, and Tilt runs to him and hugs him. Luna and Elga are there too, congratulating him on his new home. Then Suzaku arrives, who says he heard how they built the house and came to give Erida the award. He says, not understanding what the reward is for, Suzaku explains that he promised to do something for him when he encountered the gas in the battle of the animal gods. Erida remembers his words and thinks that at that moment he wanted to help Lena return to the continent, but there was no point in that necessity, so he forgot about the promise. Then Suzaku raised his wings and said that he had a long-standing idea of how to reward Erida. Erida looked up and saw his Suzaku in the middle of the sky, who began to transform his body. He turned into a fiery whirlwind and became a phoenix. Then he shook his tail and looked at Erida with his eyes eagle so intently. Seeing this, Lena said that she had never felt such an ominous, mystical power emanating from no magical beast on the continents. While Erida thought that this was the most powerful creature on the island, Suzaku flew up to surprise Erida and said that he wanted to give them the right to cling to him to inspect island. So, they left, and Suzaku explained that he almost never lets him to ride, but he offers it to Erida because he entered it. After that, Erida and Elena sat down at the phoenix, and Erida thought that the animal wasn't even hotter, and he felt around him sacred aura. Erida looked at the animal and said, friends complained, and asked Suzaku, would he give everyone a ride? Hearing this, Suzaku said that only Erida could say one of those words because she was like a goddess to the guys there. Erida gifted this mischievous smiled and said that he probably wouldn't take everyone, but Suzaku agreed to the trip for everyone, but Elga still had doubts. Then Suzaku explained that he had promised Erida that will do anything for him. When she heard this, Luna was already sitting on the wing of the phoenix, and the rest of the crowd rose up too. The phoenix flapped its wings and soared into the sky with incredible speed. Erida closed his eyes in fear and asked everyone to relax. When he opened eyes, a view of the island opened up before him. Lena was amazed and said that the island, incredible. Erida also found it too much and realized that for the first time he was seeing the island from the outside. He didn't even realize that it was so huge and thought that there must be several on it. Different races, cultures, and unknown places. Then he looked at the smiles of his friends and was happy to be reborn in this world. Lena said that many more fun times await them, days, and that she will continue to live happily on an island full of powerful creatures. She expressed hope that God would continue to take care of her. Meanwhile, on the continent, 7 archmages gathered around a round table. One of the mages asked if they were sure that Elena is dead, and another mage confirmed that she was, since her ship was caught in a storm, which no one survived. Then the first magician said that, although he was the youngest of them, she still remains one of them. He emphasized that the kingdom wants to use them as pieces on the board, but they won't let that happen. Another magician replied that the loss, an inexperienced girl, is not a problem, but an unfinished mission can tarnish them reputation, so he would go to the island himself. He declared that he would find a distant island and will take the elixir of life. When he turned around, the other mages wished him to complete his mission and not disgrace their name. At that moment, one of the magicians stood up and said that he was worried that he would go alone, and offered to accompany him. Their leader thought that this would be the way for them, more chances of success, and allowed it. The magician smiled and said that the time had come to go to a distant island. 2 weeks later, Erida opened the door to greet the animals arriving from the village, and thought that many of these animals have been playing and eating Elena's food ever since they went on Elga and Luna. Was worried about the dwindling food supplies and tried to hold back the crowd, but some still managed to penetrate Mar. However, Lena told Erida that she still had plenty of meat, so he wouldn't have to fight for food. Erida replied that if the crowd was having fun, then everything is fine. Then he reached for a piece of bread to try, but Lena hit him on his hand and said that the food was intended for sending to the village. She showed the arate, a bowl of spices that she won from the divine beasts, and said that the spices, the animals, are quite different from those from the continent, and he could use them in new recipes. Erida noticed that the animals had a sauce reminiscent of soy sauce, which he loved it because he was Japanese. Elena asked him if he had similar spices in his world. Erida talked about some of the dishes that went well with soy sauce, adding that he knows a little because in his past life he relied mostly on prepared food. Elena said she would ask Livia to help. Erida was excited at the prospect of trying the soup, mice, and relax on this beautiful island. Lena asked if the crowd could relax on her homeland, and Erida answered affirmatively, but not always. He explained that no one there fights because there are no monsters, but modern conveniences force the crowd to stay in heap and they can't really relax. Lena said that if he talks about cell phones, she doesn't understand why it's necessary to be able to talk to people over beyond privilege. Erida replied that a cell phone was useful, but knowing that someone could call him at any time, making it difficult to relax. Elena agreed and said that if her mentor could talk to her at any time, she would never. I was able to settle in. Elena looked at the prepared food and said that they were ready to go to the village, but was thinking about what they would do later. Erida noticed that they almost never eat fish, and Lena explained that they mostly eat plants or they hunt monsters, so she hardly cooks fish. Erida said there are some in the forest, a river where he could fish and diversify their diet. Lena agreed and suggested going to the sea for a while. When they arrived at the beach, Lena felt a breeze and noticed that 2 months had passed since she met Erida. Erida remembered that it was he who performed the cardiac massage on her and thought that it was there that he first met her. He imagined that if he hadn't met her, then life would be completely different today. Then Selena asked if everything was okay, and Erida explained that his way of thinking had changed a lot over the past 2 months. Lena said that understands that he means living alone in the jungle, and explained that after spending a long time together, she begins to understand him better. Then she said that they needed to figure out how to catch fish, and Erida suggested starting with making fishing rods. It was then that they noticed several people lying on the beach. Erida ran up to the man and saw that he was alive. He asked Lena to help the woman. He began blowing air into the guy's mouth, who started coughing up water. Seeing this, Erida said that the guy was okay, and asked Elena how the woman was. Elena used her lightning magic and pointed at woman. Erida was puzzled and asked what she was doing. Elena explained that she was conducting CPR. and Erida exclaimed that this could kill her. Lena said that reanimation is a common way to revive mages, that the success rate low, but it's common practice. Erida yelled at her to stop and said that she already dead, but Lena replied that she was alive, and the woman spat out water and a little moved. Elena looked at them and said that it would be good if they died. Right there. Erida asked if they were her comrades. Aliona agreed and said that I would even prefer to see them again. Then she looked at the guy and explained that it was Ciro, who controls destructive flames, and the lady is Merlin, who possesses water magic. She said that they were the 6th and 5th among the archmages with a level higher than her own. Then they took both of them to their home, and Erida was glad that he had prepared a guest room for them. Stay. Lena told Erida that they had more time for magical practice on. For 20 years. Erida was surprised and said that the mages don't even look old. Lena explained that powerful magicians can control age with magic, and I'm sure they're over 50 years old. Erida closed his eyes in fear, while Lena, she said she came in as a newbie, but no one greeted her and there was no real friendship in group. She admitted that everyone only mentioned ratings, so she never felt connected to them. She said that if she were stronger, perhaps everything would. It wouldn't matter. Erida said it didn't matter here because no one was on it. The island doesn't know about the 7 great magicians and that only Lena is here. Suddenly they heard noise and went to check on the magicians. Erida asked how they were and they tensed up a bit and showed unkind to him. Erida understood the reaction and thought that if they were in his place, they would too. Would be on guard. Merlin looked at Lena with surprise, seeing her alive. Then they sat down at the table, and Erida asked them to behave decently. Merlin leaned over and thanked him for saving him. Salus also mumbled something in gratitude. Erida thought, are they really as bad as Lena said? Suze and Merlin explained that they have fire and water magic and that they currently occupy 6th and 5th places among the stars. Archmages. Then Erida appears and says that he was locked on this island for 2 months and has been involved in the activities ever since. After that, he points to Lena and says she probably doesn't even need to introduce herself. The threads give in and admit that they are sure that Lena has already died. At that very moment, Merlin asks what this is. Islands, and Erida continues to imagine the strange creatures that live there, and notices that even if he explained everything, he doubts that they would believe him. Then he sends Lena to unpack everything and says that he needs to step away a bit. When he looks up and sees a dragon flying there, and then Tilt turns into human form and clings to Erida like a leech. She sniffs his body and allows him to inhale her other scent. Erida feels the anger in her eyes and understands the whole truth. Tiltu says that the island is protected by a divine barrier created by God himself. Therefore, visitors from outside are rare, and also adds that Erida's arrival is already an ominous event. She says that in the long history of the island, there has never been so many people from outside, and believes that this must be related to the barrier. Erida recalls that Elga already told him about this. Tilta says that they can't even resist the power of God. Erida continues to think about the island and the bags, believing that perhaps it's about different gods. He also knows that powerful beings are locked inside the island, so the barrier must be very strong. And if any defect appears in the barrier, only God can fix it. Then he wonders if things are really that bad since the barrier crackles and replies that not all is lost because they never turn to the outside world. He still doubts that many animals will want to get out to destroy the outside world. Erida knows that some may still try to get confused. But if things get really bad, he'll try to stop it at any cost. That's why he says that now there is no need to even worry about the story with the barrier, that the main thing is, go home and get something to eat. Uncle agrees and Erida approaches the Withers and asks if they're done chatting. He barely has time to speak before he sees his uncle. behind Erida, who had already taken a defensive posture. Erida sees them trembling with fear, and hears him ask what kind of monster he's carrying. Zu says that the beast they're with, encountered, still a child in comparison, and that he possesses sinister magical powers. Erida assures her that she is not that dangerous, but then Tilta opens her dragon wings and begins. Release black energy. The hearts of magicians freeze with fear when they feel it. An evil and overwhelming force. Erida asks her what she's cooking, and she replies that, finally, the crowd begins to fear and respect him. Erida glances at the frightened mages. He looks at you and tells you to stop behaving like this. Hearing this, she turns 180 degrees, squeezes the magician's hand and greets. Morality on the island. She assures Erida that she will treat the boys well. Erida smiles and says that since Lena knows they must be good people. Merlin, still in complete tension, seeing Ada hugging the dragon. Then he turns to Lena and says he's never seen anything like it. Lena explains that she tried to tell Rill about the island, but no one believed her. Silas pointed at Elena and he stated that no sane person would buy such a story. Erida asked, "What do they intend to do now?" And then she explained that they wanted to establish a base and gradually explore the island. Merlin noted that if the island was so dangerous, we should be careful. Erida offered to help Elena, and she replied that she had a small tent that she could borrow. Elena also said that she would give them a light, food, but then they would have to take care of themselves to survive. The Vissers bowed and thanked her. Lena said she couldn't sleep knowing her friends might die outside, but that's all she can do after what happened. Erida noticed that the Vissers decided to settle down for real. Lena explained that it was because they felt uncomfortable showing mercy, even in a lower position. Erida told her, calm down, and joked that at least they now had new neighbors. Lena sighed and said that only Erida really treats magicians so well, and she reminded him of how he once said that no one knew who she was. Then she smiled and said that the title of the great celestial magician is worth nothing on this island. At that moment Tilt said that they should go hunting, and Lena replied that if they'll bring good ingredients, she'll cook delicious food for them. Tilda laughed and said that they would not be disappointed, and Elena wished them good luck, watching them go. Then she went home and said she would start cooking for dinner. That night, Erida told Lena that he did not feel the presence of new guests while he was hunting in the forest, and is still thinking where they could go. Lena replied that after she gave away the tents, they headed towards the river and further towards Erida. And this left Erida in thought because the river, it overflows when it rains. But Lena said they'd be fine because Merlin is the best water mage on the continent. She said that mages know how dangerous island, and so they chose a place where they could succeed. Lena said that she only knew one person who could defeat Merlin on the riverbank. Then she looked at Erida and said that he was the only one who could defeat him because his power was beyond his control, beyond reason. After that, she'll go to the shower, and Erida thinks that Lena must be incredible magician, but she thinks they are stronger because, in her opinion, he doesn't know that she foresees the future, but hopes to make friends with the new guests. At that moment in the sky, Will showed up and said he was back for some fun. He got stuck in the wall, and Erida noticed his strange clothes, asking why he came so late. Will replied that it was only him, and Luna talked to him and asked why he built this strange wall. Erida said that it was a necessary barrier to stop monsters like her from attacking. To the bathroom while someone was inside. However, Will said he had already found a way in, and Erida. He replied that he succeeded because he could fly, but he would not let her destroy a house or a wall. The vampire smiled mischievously, created a magic stone, and said that Will try. He enlarged the stone and pointed at the wall. Erida saw that the flying stone hit and crashed without causing any harm. Seeing this, Eris was frightened, but then proudly smiled thinking that it was worth putting so much magic into the wall. Will smiled irritably and asked how much magic it took to make the wall so strong. Erita noted that Will is only interested in Lena and realized that he always shows up when Lena takes a shower. Then he asked Will why he was doing this. If she uses eavesdropping spell and claims that he does not understand what is being said, then he uses magic of clairvoyance, explaining that he only intends to confuse Lena, although in a normal situation, she would have already destroyed the bathroom wall without thinking. Then she turns to Erita, expressing surprise that he sensed the arrival of new people on the island, and asks about the appearance of someone from his race. Erita admires her insight, while Will explains that strange events began to happen in the island's barrier even before their arrival. She claims to have sensed the recent disturbance, so she decided intervene, and Erita believes that she may be genuinely concerned about their situation. However, Will expresses a desire to hear everything and, with a sly smile, announces the emergence of new toys for entertainment. Erita realizes that he is up to something bad again and whispers about his interesting ideas. Erita asks him not to create confusion, to which Will replies that it's not his problem. Erita remembers their first meeting and comes to the conclusion that it's not his problem. It is difficult to confuse others, since his vision of the world is different from human, and admits that he accepts this side. Will and she seem similar, but in fact they are different, and he explains that each race has its own image. Life. She says it's a mistake to think they're truly capable of understanding each other. Friend. Erita thinks that she might be right, since even people have very different thoughts and beliefs, and if we are talking about different races or regions, then differences become even more significant, while the island's inhabitants show much greater individualism than ordinary people, and the island is inhabited by creatures that do whatever they want, take it into their heads. Then she smiles and says that despite this, they can still get along. Will agrees and confirms that this is possible thanks to a common language and the ability to experience strong feelings for each other, after which he extends his hand to Erita, saying that despite the differences in race, they can still be friends. She approaches to Erita and notices that Lena has probably already finished taking a bath, and poor Erita, a little lost, as if he had forgotten who he was talking to, since Will always finds a way change the situation to tease those around him. Will gives him a shrewd smile and suggests to stop pretending, claiming that he is able to see what is happening in bathroom if he pays attention. Erita continues to imagine Lena naked and hears Will say that he even sees the mine in her head. She still claims that this is a natural reaction for a guy, and Erita is embarrassed and, gathering his courage, indignantly declares that he would never allow himself to do such a thing. At that moment, Lena comes out from the bathroom, notices a trembling Erita, and immediately accuses him of doing something like that. She turns to her with a question whether he could really do that, but Erita replies in despair that although he has such an ability, he would never use it, took advantage of it. However, in reality, our semi-innocent comrade represents Lena in various poses and blushes even more than a tomato, and Will gets even more pleasure, claiming that no guy could hold back while being around naked girl. Erita asks him to calm down, but when she looks again, he is already no. Then Lena calls Erita and says that she wants to exchange ideas with him, and Erita, hearing this, he lowers his head and thinks that the night will be long. The next day, Erita apologizes to Lena for what happened, but assures her that everything is fine and says that if he wanted to do something like that, he would have done it. He would have done it a long time ago. Erita is grateful because he trusts her. Lena remembers how Erita asked to build house with separate rooms and admits that she has some awkward stuff about which needs to be told. She explains that if he weren't there, she doesn't know if she would survive on the island because her barrier is not strong enough against monsters, so she can never get a good night's sleep. She also says that monsters stay away when Erita is nearby. Erita looks at her and thinks that monsters are attracted to her. difference in strength, so they stopped approaching him. Unlike the first days, he, a little sad, thinking that perhaps Lena sees him more as a mosquito coil than a real man. Then he clenches his fists and thinks that if his presence helps her sleep better, then it softens him for her reassurance. He admits that Lena is doing well, took care of him all this time, and that's why he will be with her. Lena thanks him. On time. Afterwards, Erida goes for a walk and thinks the monsters remember his scent. Therefore, they will not come near his house. He continues walking and believes that he should go through the forest to show the monsters that this is his territory. When he approaches the river, then remembers Merlin and Cho, since Lena said that they set up camp nearby. He decides to take a look at the guests, since they arrived on the island only yesterday. He crosses the forest and thinks that they are close because the forest is not that dense. When he reaches the river, he sees a water monster created by Merlin. He then notices that Merlin and Cho froze, ready to fight, but Erida still doesn't understand anything and asks, "Elga, what's going on?" Elga explains that they were going to visit Erida, but Luna smelled something strange, and ran after him. Then she started this whole mess. Erida thinks that the Lynx and Merlin decided that Luna wanted to attack them. He asks Luna and Elga, did they do anything to them? And both answer that they didn't touch anyone. Then Erida turns to the mages and asks if they are dangerous. But Cho replies that they are not. They believe it's because they emit an insane amount of magical power. Suddenly, Erida looks up at the sky and sees a huge rooster flying above them. Cho gets scared and asks what kind of animal is this? Merlin claims that the local monsters seem more ferocious than the fire dragon from hell that they defeated on the continent. Erida points to the bird and asks Luna what it is, and she replies that it is a bird, Santak. Erida thinks that if the moon is lucky, then the meat of this animal should probably be too hot. Rooster looks furious at Erida and the divine beasts and writes that their danger level is higher than humans. The animal then takes off and attacks the magicians, who seem less dangerous. They shout that they occupy the 5th and 6th places among the stars of the Archon wizard family, so he can't underestimate them. Erida watches and thinks that Luna is the same, so always shouts her name in battle. He runs towards the frightened mages and screams that he can't see them attack. Suddenly Luna jumps up and screams that she's taking the meat. She falls on the rooster's back and throws him to the ground. Erida sees the rooster falling and realizes that Luna has already defeated the animal. The wizards are amazed to see the defeated bird, because they were expecting help from the beastmen. Erida approaches the mages and asks if everything is okay with them. Okay, they greet him and thank him. He notices that they are tired and recalls the symptoms. Leanness. He realizes that they are sick because of the moon's magic. Erida kneels before them and says he'll keep an eye on the surroundings while they're camping, and they're back. They'll thank him. He turns to Elga, who asks if they're okay. Erida replies that Lena also had problems with strong magical energy, but they'll get used to it in time. Elga replies that they'll try to be more careful, but if they are so weak, they need protection. However, she says she doesn't care what happens, what will happen to them, and says that if Erida wants to take responsibility, they will tell him. They'll help. Erida thanks him and suggests going fishing since they're by the river. Elga agrees. Afterwards, Erida casts his line and enjoys the natural scenery. He then hears Elga and Luna say that they didn't catch anything and suggests, relax and wait a bit. But Luna doesn't like it and says that this game, very boring. Erida uses his senses and feels the fish swimming in shallow water, and points his finger to the place where he felt the fish. Elga and Luna are inspired and trying to catch a fish. Erida casts his line and feels like he's caught something big. He pulls hard and throws the rod back, but when he hears a big splash, he gets scared and realizes that it is not the sound of a river fish. He approaches what he has caught and widens his eyes in shock. It's not a fish, it's an alvar. After a while, we see Erida kneeling. in front of Lena, who asks why he came back with the girl if he just went out. Walk. Erida lowers his head and explains that he was just relaxing and fishing. But so, it worked. Lena sighs and says that she'll think about the girl later because now is the time. Cook dinner. Erida agrees and remembers that they have fresh meat from shot rooster, but Luna says he hasn't shown tilt yet, so she can't eat until it's free. After that, everyone can cook together. Lena looks at the jars with fish and says that the main dish of the day will be fish. Luna gets angry and asks, will they really eat this fish? Lena is just saying hello. Erida realizes that Luna is sad and thinks that she must have become attached to some fish, thinking that this will help her understand the value of life, but soon changes her mind after seeing Bayer later. In the fish, while Elga sits next to the unconscious girl, Erida enters and asks her, is everything okay? Elga tells Erida that she's just sleeping and that, by the way, it's okay. Notice that she is an elf. She explains that elves are similar to elves, but are a different race with darker skin and a different culture. She says that the elves live in the mountains, and the dark elves are in the forest. She says that the dark elves worship the spirits of darkness, fire and lands, and the elves worship the spirits of light, water and wind. Elga says that it's not about that spirits hate each other or that races are at odds, but that they have a problem. She explains that the divine beast tribes get along well with the elves but not so well with elves. She then says that the reason their boss is a phoenix is because that for a long time he had a connection between his flame and the flame of the great spirit of fire, whom they love. And since then the elves treat them as enemies, but that was 1,000 years ago. Back. Suddenly, the elf on the bed opens his eyes and asks where she is. Erida tells the girl that everything is fine. She is at home and the girl is already from this place. Got hungry. After some time we see the girl devouring the fish, as if participating in a mook competition. Then Luna gets trashed, but accepts the challenge and also starts eating. Elga is also afraid to drink her potion. Then Lena asks Erida about the girl, and he replies that her name is Katma, and she came from the northern mountains where her tribe lives. Hearing this, Lena wants to know how the mountain girl ended up in the river. Erida explains that she was hungry and tried to fish, but her leg broke and got stuck. Elena shakes head and calls the girl destroyed. Luna and Katma fall to the floor with a full stomach, and Elena scolds them for cheating right after eating, saying that it is a disadvantage. Education. The girls say they are full and just want to sleep, and Erida suggests Katma stay the night because it's already late. Hearing this, Luna also says that she wants stay, and Erida takes them both to the room. Seeing this, Lena says that he looks like her father, and Erida replies that she looks like his mother. Lena is embarrassed and introduces them. A small family, while Erida thinks it's just a joke. Seeing this romantic weather-climate level, Elga gets upset and sends Erida to take girls into the room because they're almost done with laundry. Erida takes the girls upstairs and puts them down to bed. Later he comes out and sees Lena frying more fish, and asks where this is from. Fish. Elga shows the hidden bucket and says that she hid the fish she took. Elena hands it over. Fish and says that this time she prepared the dish for more people and asks what they think. Elga praises the smell, and Elena tells her to scream, because the girls are sleeping. Meanwhile, Erida continues to look at the food and comments that it tastes good. Goes well with wine. Then Lena suddenly takes out a bottle and holds the cups. Seeing this, Erida asks her if she hid the wine, and Lena explains that she saved it for a special occasion. Chance because she had very little of it. They raise a toast. Erida takes a sip and finds the wine easy drinking and refreshing. Elga shudders with pleasure and finds food delightful, and Erida understands that she is holding back from letting out a scream. Lena brings the glass to her mouth and drinks the contents, and Erida blushes, looking at her. Seeing that they are both lost in each other, Elga makes a provocative comment, but Lena ignores him and directs Arata's gaze to the starry sky. He looks and says that I like loud parties, but it's nice to have quiet nights like this too. The next day, Arata wakes up in the morning and sees that Katma is there too and asks why she woke up like that early. She replies that she likes to sunbathe in the morning and thanks Arata for saving her. He says that everything is fine, and she says that Alfer never forgets the kindness of others, and then apologizes for eating so much of the fish she took. Hearing this, Arata smiles and says that next time she can bring something to Luna because she was the one who ate the most fish. Akatama says he'll pay well, but he wants to help him with something because he saved her. Arata asks if they really live in mountains, and Akatama explains that many spirits of fire, earth and darkness live there, so they are very comfortable. He asks if they have hot food there, and she replies that there is plenty in the mountains. Food because they are the source of life. Arata says that she would like some drink when he visits the mountains, and Katama says that she will talk to the elder and that her people has a duty to him. Then the Great Spirit will greet her. That's good. At that moment, Lena and Luna appear, and Lena asks what they were talking about. Arata explains the main points of the conversation, and Lena says that there are still some ingredients left, but you can use more vegetables. Akatama replies that the mountains are full of nature's gifts, and that they also grow some plants. Elena and Akatama begin to exchange ideas about ingredients, and Arata thinks they'll be talking for a while, so he decides to go to the river. Luna says she wants to go, and the two of them walk through the forest. Arriving at river, they see Suz practicing with fire. Arata and Luna greet each other, but Luna notices that Suz is unhappy with their presence and asks why he's looking at her like that. Arata thinks that Luna is holding back her magic, but Suz sees the difference in power and is still afraid of Luna and many people from another island. Arata feels like he's a stranger here on this island and wants everyone to get along with each other. He tells Luna that Suz isn't used to it yet, so she must behave discreetly, not showing her strength. Suz apologizes in front of Arata, and he replies that he understands that it will take him time to get used to it. Arata notices that Merlin and Suz look even more wary than Lena, but he doesn't. Wants them to be afraid of his friends all the time and thinks that if this situation happens, they may develop psychological problems. He thinks that even having met recently, he doesn't want everything to end badly and asks if there is. Do they have time after that? Suz replies that they don't have much to do in the morning, and then Arata invites him to have coffee together. Then Arata comes into the house and asks Lena, have they talked enough? Lena says they've discussed a lot and gained a lot vegetables, and she's already excited about her upcoming visit to Ensign. Then Lena sees Merlin, and Susa is behind Arata and asks why they are here. Arata explains the situation and says that it seemed like a great idea to all have coffee together. He looks at Elena and remembers that she didn't get along very well with the celestial mages, but he thought they weren't enemies, so maybe he did it to resolve the issues over food. Elena notices him, sad face, and says that if he wants, she doesn't mind having coffee together, but she still have their own opinion on this matter. Hearing this, Arata says that everyone lives on the same island, so it's better if everything goes well. Lena agrees and says that they are not in the kingdom or on the continent. Then she extends her hand and talks about her type. Tense magicians who, although the island seems like hell, sometimes it is a good place to live, so it's better to put the past aside and try to understand each other. Suz takes Elena's hand and apologizes for everything that happened, saying he wants to start over. He turns to Merlin and says that she should also reward and talk. And Merlin agrees and says she never imagined that something like this could happen after achieving Markham's 7th level. Then she shakes Elena's hand and says that she, too, wants to start everything again. Arata thanks the elves for coming, and he replies that they should talk more about the good things. Then Luna asks the elves if they are still afraid of her, and the elves say that there are no more, and thank her for saving them. Hearing this, Luna says that she wants to be his friend and calls him uncle. Suz is surprised and asks why she calls him that, and Luna replies that he is like an uncle to her. Suz admits that this is his family veil, and Merlin and Lena start laughing. Then he points at Merlin and asks what Luna will call her, and Luna says that she is Aunt. Hearing this, Merlin exclaims that Su already knew she would say that. Erita and Lena are happy to see that they became friends. At this point, Katama, a girl from Makama, says she's hungry, and Erita remembers that they haven't had coffee yet. Lena offers them something to eat, and everyone heads to table. Erita also calls Zeus and Merlin, and everyone sits down in the dining room. Erita looks at guys and thinks he has no idea how they will survive on this island. He thinks that they can develop an escape plan and decides to help if they want to leave because it's a free island where they can live the way they want and always have fun. He knows that they will meet a lot of people and that a lot of strange things will happen. Erita believes that he wants to enjoy life on this island for a long time. After coffee, Erita says it's always noisy here, but he feels lonely when no one is around. Elena says that if coffee shops are so noisy, she'll get tired quickly. She says that, I never imagined that everything would end like this, since they only saw magicians on meetings and barely spoke. Erita recalls that she said that the mages preferred live apart because of pride and because they didn't get along with each other. Then he says that they resolved their differences and can now live closer, and he asks Elena that they can live close until they get used to the island. Elena says that having them around can be helpful in everyday life, and explains that Zeus, who controls fire, can help her cook meat. Erita looks at her and thinks that cooking meat doesn't go with someone with such a big title. Lena continues and says that Merlin, who uses water magic, can help with laundry and cleaning because water is good for these tasks. Erita continues to wonder if it would be a good idea to ask them for help with these simpler things, and thinks that their titles mean little here, that the most important thing is to improve quality of life in general. Lena then says that she will leave Erita to his discretion, and suggests that they support the boys right away. So the two of them leave and accept Silu and Merlina. Silu says she hopes she can count on their support, and asks them to choose where to set up the tents. Erita helps them set up the tents and then comes home. Both Merlin and Elena go to the bathroom, and Merlin comments that he didn't expect that he would enjoy swimming outdoors like this on the island. Elena explains that they built another bathroom separate from the house, and it reminds me of the first time it was destroyed by a vampire. Meanwhile, Erita talks about the silo who will have to watch out for supplies of fire and water. Then Silas asks if his pompous titles are just a joke for him. Erita replies that these titles mean nothing to him. Ilias sends a tin can that they are just trying to survive on the island and would be grateful for any function provided to them. Erita asks what they plan to do if they weren't invited. Cello says they were going to try to find a way to survive and that we also need to find a way to get back to the continent. Hearing this, Erita thinks that only Elena has decided to stay on the island and feels that Zils wants to leave as soon as possible. He then tells Zeus that even Elga doesn't know how to get off the island, but Zeus is afraid to find out about Elga. Aratus reassures him, saying that Elga is a good person and will always ready to help. Zeus looks at Erita and says that normal people are afraid of dangerous creatures, but he's different. Then Erita tells him that he's never been afraid of anyone on the island, but Willy and Suzaku are the only ones he respects because they are different from the others. Erita explains that they're not evil, they just like to provoke the crowd. Suddenly, Will says that only a very strange person could say such a thing. Sue trembles with fear looking at the vampire and falls to the ground. Will, full of anger, asks Erita why he blocks his way to the bathroom. Erita replies that he's trying to stop him again. Destroy and tells him to stop visiting Lena when she is taking a shower. Hearing this, Zoa asks Erita Does he really not want to see Elena's embarrassment? She angrily smiles and says that he should get out of her way so that she can enjoy the full appearance, but Erida firmly replies that he will not fall for her tricks. At that moment, Will senses frightened connections and appears to be a purebred vampire who sends Knights of Darkness. The connections nearly wet their pants and say he's the sixth of the 7 archmages. Hearing this, Will tells Erida that normal people are afraid of him, but Erida tells him that she is not afraid of him at all, explaining that sometimes she irritates him a little, but he still considers her a friend with whom he can exchange ideas. Will admits that it is good to have someone to talk to. Erida notices her face and says that she must be confused. Then Will gets upset and attacks Erida with a fireball, but he catches it in time, throws it away. Seeing this, Zeus asks if everything is all right, and Erida replies that for him, that's okay. Then Will looks at Erida and says he's worse than a monster. Then she points to the keels and welcomes him to the island, handing him a mushroom, and says that she has come have fun and didn't bring a big gift, but this mushroom is the most delicious on the island, and she gives it to him as a sign of friendship. Erida snatches the mushroom from her hand at that moment and says that won't let her give it to him because he knows what it's for. He remembers a walk with Elga when she talked about various forest products. When Erida asked about mushrooms, Elga said they were edible, but they should only be eaten on special occasions. So Erida admits, a little embarrassed, that the mushroom enhances desire. He asks if he has visited Will and says that once she gave him a similar mushroom and he prefers not even remember how it all ended. He says that the old vampire is ready to do anything to have fun, so you have to be careful. Putting that thought aside, Erida asks if there was a banaban mushroom. Villa senses it and asks how he knew, and Erida replies that he said rent. Will gets angry and says that his girlfriend is unpleasant because only thanks to her he has a happy family. Erida reports that Elga is angry because made him skip all the stages of happiness and turned him into an animal, and then says that took her a long time to make Livia fall in love with him, so it can't be said that he has no problems. Will asks Erida. He reflects on his feelings for Lena and uses the distraction to attack the bathroom. Lena leaves and wonders, why does he always appear at such moments and try to talk about strange stops? Will replies that he likes to see Lena embarrassed. Lena points her finger at Will and asks him to stop before she offers him a more delicious treat. Will leaves out of her reach and says her food looks delicious, but the embarrassment is much more attractive. Then he flies away and promises to return to play another night, so they'll have to wait. As soon as he disappears, Suz asks Erida if everything is okay. Island to his taste. Erida explains that the vampire belongs to a special category, although he is not. I'm sure there's anyone else on the island. CIO says he's not sure he'll survive on this island without Erida, but Erida is flattered to hear this from the guy. 7 days later, Tsilu and Marlin starts living next to Erida and Lena. They realize that living in a tent is it's awkward. Then Erida and Lena help them build a real house. Luna and her friends. They arrive just in time to celebrate the housewarming party, and everyone has a great time together. In the evening, Erida says that his quality of life has improved thanks to Merlin and Seuss. He then asks Lena if she has a nickname like Merlin and Seuss. Alina says that she used to be called the 1,000 Spells. Erida praises her title. Lena explains that she doesn't have any special talents, so her skills are more suited to helping out on a daily basis. Erida says that on this island brute force is not needed for victory and that her magic is valuable precisely because she improves their lives every day. He remembers that Silas said he couldn't use storage magic, but Lena knows several types of spells, so she received the nickname of 1,000 Spells. Lena blushes and thanks him, and Erida thinks that could not live well without her, and recalls her delicious dinner. He then notes that he hasn't seen Tilta for a long time, and Lena remembers that will also stopped appearing at night. Erida thinks that they both used to show up almost every day, but suddenly they stopped. Out of the blue, he thinks Tiltu is fine, but Will's disappearance seems suspicious. Lena suggests that perhaps they are planning something strange, but Erita says they don't even know each other properly. The next day, Erita opens the door and sees Will standing in front of them, as if foreshadowing danger. Noticing this, Lena suggests that Erita leave him, and Erita replies that he could do it, but she just will be back later. Will laughs and says he came to play with them. Erita says that he is acting strange and notes that he barely appears during the day. Will smiles and asks where Luna and the others are, and Erita replies that they haven't arrived yet. Will says that's not even true. Better. He adds that what he's planning will be too much for the child. At that moment, they hear a roar and Erita grabs Lena and jumps, saying that they need to get out of there. The enraged dragon flies towards the house, and seeing this, Lena hugs Erita and says that it seems to be Tiltu. Erita recognizes Tiltu, but feels that something is wrong, and Lena thinks that he did something to her. Erita jumps to the floor and sends Lena away while he decides. Problem. Lena asks him not to get hurt and to leave without Erita. He encounters a dragon, who flies at him and orders her to calm down. Hearing this, the dragon suddenly changes appearance, rushes towards him and embraces him. Erita, having lost his head, looks at damaged forest, reflecting on the fact that she seemed to have no intention of causing harm. He understands that she just needs affection, even if she acts a little strange. Lena comes up and asks if everything is okay with Erita. He replies that everything is fine and carries Tilta home in his arms, thinking she's acting strange, but he'll have to ask. Will talks about it. They enter the house and see Will sitting at the table, saying that they got it all sorted out faster than he expected. Then Erita sees what Mina is cooking and asks what she's cooking. Will replies that her friends always support her, so she decided to thank them with a special dish, and there is nothing suspicious about it. Will insists that they can't refuse food prepared by her, but Erita asks. He first had to explain what he did to Tilt. Will smiled and said he was just helping. To be a little more honest, using a technique called magic eyes. Hearing this, Erita says he doesn't feel anything strange. Then Will calls him boring and explains that there are several types of magical eyes and that he used stimulates instincts. Erita guesses what was about to happen, and Lena asks when Tiltu returns to normal. Will replies that she might get better after, before she tries his dish. And Erita looks nervously at the soup and asks, does he really expect him to eat it? Will says that if he doesn't eat it, he'll make Lena try it instead of him. Erita sits down at the table, drinks, and thinks that the taste of the soup is reminiscent of nature, brings a feeling of warmth and nostalgia, like home, comfort. Will notices his expression and says he liked the soup, and Erita admits that it warms and does no harm. Lena decides to trust Will and tries soup, finding it delicious. Will eats comfortably since she is already full, so won't eat anything else. Then he gives her this sinister smile and whispers that leaves room for dessert. After they eat the soup, the Tylenas go to bed for a nap, and Lena begins to read. Seeing this, Will, who is like a love guru, exclaims that you should do something more interesting than sleeping, especially when the child and mine are living together. She suggests some adult games. Then Erita immediately says that he likes it. It's not interesting, but Will, with that mischievous smile, says that he will quickly lose his shyness. Erita shouts at him to explain what he's up to. Then he feels that Tilt is hugging him tightly and her voice is too shrill. Seeing this, he asks Will whether he moved the mine, but Will, nonchalantly, says that he only served food. Suddenly, Lena comes up to him, hugs him tightly and calls him by name in her strong voice. The two of them hug him and he blushes with embarrassment, trying to free himself. He tells them to. They stopped and asked Will what he did again. Will replied that he gave me some soup, nothing else. Then he showed me the bottle and said he just added a little bit alcohol that is used in regular food. Arata looks at her angrily and asks whether it was really an ordinary drink, and explains that it was a wine full of it. Magic. Caught in the arms of the mince, Arata asks what will happen if he drinks it, and Will says that a large dose drives a person crazy, but if it's just a little bit food, then most feel good, slightly drunk. Arata blushes, looks at girls who ask to do something. Proxeneta ran his hands over their heads, and I thought that Tiltu was always beautiful, but Lena has that cold and elegant beauty, and this new version is incredibly charming. Right there, Lena leans into his ear and says that his name is so soft, almost driving him crazy. Arata quickly disappears from both of them and sends Will to clean up the mess he made. Will smiles wickedly as he sees Arata runs away and thinks that even he ran away because he saw something too much. She looks at him jumping up and down and thanks the rank. Meanwhile, Arata sits by the river after escaping from Madman Lena and Tilt. He says he shouldn't have trusted Will to imagine how Lena touches him, but he restrains himself. He splashes water from the river in his face and says that he liked it, but he needs to focus on something else. He sits in silence and understands that he hasn't been alone for a long time, thinks that he lives with Lena, while Tiltu and Luna, they visit him every day. He reflects that he wanted to live alone, but now he feels unwell without them and thinks that something inside him has changed. Levant says it's too early, going back home, so he decides to give himself a break. Suddenly the floor beneath his feet begins to glow brightly, blinding him, forcing him to cover his eyes. When the light dims, he opens his eyes and is surprised to see a ruined castle ahead and a dragon nearby. A guy comes up and asks who he is, and Arata turns his head asking what happens. The dragon starts to roar and approach him, and the guy screams at him to run. Arata stands still, thinking the dragon is strong, but seems harmless next to his Zaku and Will, and even weaker than Emperor Bori. Then a mine falls in front of him, and he asks for forgiveness, and explains that he brought him there because he used a divine spell to open a portal to another world to summon the most powerful divine being. But his plan failed. A guy named Art tells the group that they shouldn't meet. Saint Siri apologizes and says that the summoning was the only chance to fight an apocalyptic dragon. Another mine falls. Eli comes over and says that he, too, guilty because she wasn't strong enough. Arata listens as the witch says that she, not worthy of her title. Looking at them seriously, he believes that they are people with powerful roles of heroes, saints, and witches. He encounters a dragon and believes that it's an apocalyptic dragon, and he realizes he's scared. Arca points at the monster and says that this is a terrible apocalyptic dragon, and church books say that this is the incarnation, evil that will destroy the world. Eli says the only way to defeat it is sacrifice the life of one. Arata approaches the dragon, thinking that they were supposed to summon him as their last hope, but to them he seems like an ordinary guy, so they don't take him seriously. He asks himself if there is a way for him to return to the island. Then Art says he'll cover him and he should run without looking back, not even listening to the screams. Siri says for his life, and Eli says they'll try to win. Time for him to survive. Arata goes to the dragon, thinking that he can't escape because these people are good. Art sees him approaching the dragon and asks where he is going, warning that it is dangerous to be near the monster. Arata comes closer and sees the dragon's surprised expression. Then the dragon opens its mouth and releases flames. The heroes. They look on in shock and blame themselves for being too strong. The weak warriors needed help, and Eli scolds Arata, saying that he is of no use since he should focus on the enemy. But Arata stands there as if he's not there, with that expression on his face. The warriors look at him with disbelief as he calmly reaches out his hands to the dragon and squeezes fist to attack. The dragon shakes his head, and Arata thinks he was just imagining it, because the dragon can't understand it. But then he strikes with all his might and throws it back. Monster into the sky. The hero's jaws drop as the dragon falls back to earth and freezes motionless. Erida looks at the body and declares victory. Then they are sent back to their world, and they notice a shining light at their feet. He looks up when Ciri asks if Erida is a god. He replies that he's just a regular guy. And as he begins to fade, Asiri quickly asks his name. Erida says it, and Asiri says that he will tell the church and future generations about his feat, but Erida says that it wasn't that much, he just helped a little. But Ciri insists that spread the story of the divine messenger, and everyone is very grateful. After this, Erida opens his eyes and finds himself in a forest on an island. He looks around and thinks that returned to where he was taken from. He asks if it was just a dream and thinks that Elena and Tilta must have calmed down now, which means it's time to go back. Later he opens the door and sees Elena sitting on the couch, who blushes at the sight of him. Will greets him, and Erida thanks him for caring about his friends. At that moment, Tellulo runs up and hugs him, saying that she is happy that he is back, while Elena blushes again and says that she is also glad to see him home. Erida feels relieved, seeing her smile, and realizes that he was more worried about her than he thought. Will sees hugging Erat and says that it's time for them to leave, but Tilta replies that they will sleep with Erida that night. Will uses shadow magic to pull Tilta towards him and says that this shouldn't be fun. Tito insists that he wants Erita to have her spoiled, but he walks her to the door and wants everyone to have a fun night. As soon as they leave, Erida feels a little awkward because they haven't been alone for a long time. Then Lena says that she wants to talk about what happened today, but Erida replies, so much has happened that it's better to rest, because tomorrow no one will remember anything. He looks at her and thinks that maybe now is not the right time for that, so that they could understand each other better. Elena comes closer and says that tomorrow is not yet has arrived, so this night shouldn't be like the rest. She hugs him and says it wasn't the alcohol at dinner that made her want to be with him. She puts her head on his shoulder and says that tomorrow everything will be as usual again. So only on this night she wants him to relax a little. Her words touch the heart of our boy. Sigma begins to beat faster, and he hugs her tightly. Meanwhile, in the cathedral, a group of heroes stands before a priest who accuses Ciri of summoning Erita, despite the fact that she was supposed to be a saint one day. He slams his staff on the floor and tells her to stop worry, claiming that she is no longer a saint. The priest accuses her of being possessed and calls her the witch of the deadly sins. She defends Erita, saying he is skillful and kind, a man sent by God. But the priest insists that the one who defeated the dragon with one blow cannot be a man. He says that the church, he already knows the truth that she sold her soul to a demon. The priest orders her to stop talking and announces that at the end of their lives, while the holy warriors surround the heroes, Eli believes that Ciri has proven to be very useful for the church and wonders if its light is too strong. There the shadow that this light creates becomes deeper and darker. She reflects that a light as powerful as Ciri's is perceived only as a problem in internal strife. Churches, and as word spread, it became obvious that it was all planned from the very beginning. She thinks that from the moment they entered the cathedral, their fate was already sealed and there was nothing they could do. And Ciri closes her eyes and prepares to use his most powerful magic, despite warnings from his friends that this could end badly for her. She declares that she is ready to do anything to protect the boys. Then Ciri offers a prayer, asking God to stop the fighting, raises staff and releases a powerful light. Ark and Eli admit that the light used is the same one, which she used when she called Erita for help. Suddenly Will says he heard the request. Ciri looks at him in surprise while Will notes that he has not felt the power of God for a long time. Ciri admits she never imagined Will leaving the island, but it happened because Ciri formed a bond with Erita. At that moment, one of the warriors asks who it will be. Ciri turns to him and introduces herself. The warrior asks if this is truly the one mentioned in the myth, which is over 10,000 years old. She explains that this girl is an ancient vampire, over 10,000 years old. Will unleashes dark energy and says that this is the demon queen, who has already enslaved the gods. Afterwards, he destroys the church and claims he fulfilled Ciri's wish, and none of her loved ones were harmed. Ciri thanks him and asks why he helped, and Will replies that he was having fun. He then explains that he sensed the remnants of the gods' magic and Erata's power. Hearing this, Ciri asks if Erata sent him, and Will confirms it. Ciri is excited, thinking she can apply her love lessons to Erata too. He then looks at the boys and says the summoning spell is wearing off, so he'll be back home soon. Ciri replies that she didn't even have time to thank him, but Will says they're already connected, so if they want to see Erata again, they'll find a way to him. As he vanishes, he says Erata is on the divine island of Arcadia. Ark turns to his friends and tells them that they need to run because they can't stay in the destroyed church, as they are now wanted dead or alive. Ciri looks at the ruined land with a heavy heart and says it's time to set out for the divine island of Arcadia. The warriors move through the ruins, beginning their journey to find Erata. Meanwhile, Erata sits at the table and reflects on everything that has happened. But lately the days have been calm. He thinks they've managed to build a house, interact with the divine beasts, and lead a comfortable life on the island, but now he wants even more comfort. He tells Lena that they should build a road to the divine beast's village, because the last time he looked for Luna, the road was very bad. Lena admits that there isn't even a decent road there, and Erata adds that Merlin and the Cyclopes, they visited Villa das Bestas because they found the route too difficult. A more convenient route is being developed to improve communication, and the idea is considered good, but the land originally belongs to the animals that breed there, and they were only asked to use it temporarily. It is claimed that the animals might not like this idea. Then Erata explains the idea to Elga and says she's not worried, explaining that divine beasts don't need a road, but ordinary people in Villa das Bestas don't know when a monster might appear. He says the monsters won't approach the road because of Erata's scent, which will increase safety. Elena suggests consulting their law first, but Elga replies that she probably won't even call and is currently absent from the village. He explains that she went to visit Will and hasn't returned yet, appearing very upset. Hearing this, Erata asks if everything is all right, and Elga replies that even if the old woman dies, she will rise again, so there's nothing to worry about. He then offers to help and suggests calling on the clan for support. Afterwards, Elena asks how Erata plans to build the road, and he explains that they first need to cut down the trees and then level the ground using earthbending. However, Elena notes that mana is finite and that the village is far away, but is surprised when Erata says he never runs out of mana. She points to the forest and asks what he'll do with the felled trees. Erata tells Elga that the trees are in good condition and shouldn't be thrown away. Elga replies that they'll find a use in her village. Erata then raises his hand and cuts down the trees with magic, and his companions carry them away. 3 days later, Erata imagines the size of the road and says they've only completed 1/10 of the way to the village, and he explains that it used to take him half an hour to run to Villa das Bestas. He then asks about Merlin and the Ellens. Elena replies that they're fine, but tired from mana depletion. Hearing this, Erata suggests they rest for now. Elena says she wants to take a bath, and Erata suggests they get ready. Afterwards, Erata looks up at the sky and thinks the sun is still high and he enjoys days like these. But he can't do everything alone, and it's no fun without friends. He smiles, imagining spending time with them, and thinks about how much he enjoys the quiet life of everyday life. He reflects on how he wakes up free every day, working and playing whenever he wants.